since I'm so used to the trope of fake versus real young masters. The very first thing I did upon returning to the wealthy family was speak up to the four sisters protecting the fake young master. If you guys don't want to treat me like your biological brother, I never planned on recognizing you as my sisters either. Since in your hearts, you only treat Mushwan as your real brother, then he can just be your only brother. If you want to keep him, do whatever you want. Just don't come bothering me from now on. These words caused the complexions of the four wealthy daughters of the Mu family to change drastically. Mu Fu and Pei Shuiro squeezed and shoved each other. Watching Pei Shuiro's heartbroken appearance, I sighed and said, "You and Dad shouldn't overthink this." Since I was willing to come back, I genuinely recognize you guys. But that's all it is, just recognizing you. I have no interest in cozying up to people who give me the cold shoulder. I am the esteemed young master of Wangzichen. It's always been others trying to butter me up. When has it ever been my turn to swallow my pride and wrong myself just to please someone else? Since I've taken over Mukin's body, I might as well settle this debt for him. Mu Fu and Pei Shuiro treat me with genuine sincerity. So naturally I'll treat them with filial respect and view them as my biological parents. As for everyone else, we'll see how it goes. Amidst the silence, a sudden gasp echoed out. Everyone at the dining table couldn't help but look over involuntarily. We saw Mushwan with red-rimmed eyes, crying out, "Dad, Mom, sisters, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Brother, please don't blame my sisters." Before she even had a chance to finish her words, she was bluntly and ruthlessly interrupted by me. "Cut it out. Stop crying and whining here. Do you think you're performing in some grand opera? Even if you love to perform, I don't have the idle time to listen. What on earth do you even want? At worst, I'll just leave and return a happy family to you all." As I said that, I made a motion to stand up and leave. Mushwan's face flushed red from being cornered by my words, leaving her completely speechless. "Xiaoqin, what kind of nonsense is this child talking about? This right here is your biological family. How can you say you'll leave just like that?" Pei Shuiro anxiously and hurriedly spoke up, reaching out to grab my wrist tightly, terrified that if I got even slightly upset, I would actually leave. "This will always be your home. You can do whatever you like. In this home, no one has any right to lecture you." After saying that, she shot a fierce glare at her daughters. As expected, having daughters is just like having debt collectors. Mu Fu also shot a fierce glare at his daughters. "That's right. You are the master of this house. Whoever finds you an eyesore can get lost themselves. From now on, do whatever makes you comfortable. Let's see who dares to have even a tiny bit of an opinion about you." The attitude of Mu Fu and his wife left me very satisfied. At the very least, this couple knows how to keep a clear head. If the two of them were also muddle-headed and clueless, insisting on wronging their biological son to favor an adopted child, then my attitude toward them in the future would just be mediocre. Mushwan felt awkward, aggrieved, and heartbroken all at once, wishing she could instantly vanish and get away from here. Yet she truly lacked the guts to do so. She was no longer the little young master of the Mu family. She was now merely an adopted child living under someone else's roof. Thinking of this, she felt even more miserable inside. Pei Shuiro looked at Mushwan and soothingly comforted her. "Xiaoqian, stop crying over here. Didn't we already talk about this matter earlier? Xiaoqin is Xiaoqin, and you're still you. There's no conflict whatsoever between you guys. Just stay at home in peace." Mushwan continued sobbing nonstop. "I just feel so sorry for my brother. Having to take a bite of food, my movements paused. Are you ever going to finish? You keep saying you're sorry to me on your lips, yet I've never seen you actively leave the Mu family. Since you've already chosen to stay, stop putting on this aggrieved face all the time. Looking at it is honestly pretty disgusting. Also, I am not your biological brother, so please address me by my name directly from now on." Of course, I could see what kind of scheme Mushwan was pulling. Wasn't she just trying to put on an aggrieved, pitiful act, so everyone would feel sorry for her and protect her? This kind of low-level trick doesn't work on me at all. If she loves to act, she could go right ahead and play her part. But if she refuses to appreciate kindness and lacks tact, then she shouldn't blame me for not giving face to my parents when the time comes. The expression on Mushwan's face instantly froze, feeling as though she had been slapped across the face in public. Her complexion alternated between pale and red, and she was practically bursting with anger inside. She was practically furious enough to explode inside. Yet right in front of everyone, he couldn't throw a tantrum either. Hit with such a direct, public shellacking from me. If he kept acting aggrieved, it would just be way too fake. Yue was the youngest of the four sisters, and usually had the most impatient temper and disposition. She immediately moved to step up and defend Xuan, only be yanked back tightly by Mu Wanting beside her. Mu Wanting looked at me, sitting across from her, her gaze filled with curiosity and exploration. This younger brother of ours actually seems a bit special. Mu Wanting's eyes flashed slightly. Welcome back to this family. What Mom and Dad just said is completely true. From now on, this place is your home. Feel free to do whatever makes you comfortable from now on, and don't worry about other people's feelings at all. Today's matter was truly our oversight. We didn't think you and Dad would make it home so fast, so the few of us went out to run some errands. Please don't overthink it in your heart. The rest of us are actually all very happy you're back home. I gave her a cool side eye and didn't reply, seeing the eldest daughter take the initiative to speak up and state her stance. The expression on Mu Fu's face grew a bit more satisfied. He turned around and instructed the nearby servants to continue serving the dishes. Today, they had explicitly instructed the kitchen to prepare a huge feast, getting all sorts of flavors ready, simply because they didn't know what I liked to eat. Right, Dad? Where did Xiaochen live before? We're his old family members. How are we supposed to handle these relationships from now on? Mu Wanting suddenly remembered something and asked, pretending to be nonchalant. As soon as she finished asking, she noticed Mu Fu's expression darken slightly. Mu Wanting's heart twitched slightly. Dad, why did you suddenly stop talking? Is there some unspeakable difficulty behind this matter? We're all family now anyway. Our younger brother's affairs are naturally our affairs. There's really no need for you to keep hiding it from us. This dinner didn't look like it was going to go down peacefully. If you want to know, you might as well ask me directly. I picked up a napkin and gently wiped the corner of my mouth. I was adopted by an old Taoist priest since I was little, and I've always lived in a dilapidated Taoist temple. That temple was built on a remote, barren mountain, and the conditions were terrible. Usually, there wasn't much incense or foot traffic either, so Master and I could barely fill our stomachs. That's why I never went to a formal school before. Learning to read and write was all taught to me by Master in the temple. From childhood to now, I haven't really gone down the mountain much. Master passed away 3 months ago due to old age. After Master left, I lived alone in the temple, until Dad finally found me a while ago, and then brought me back here. Pausing slightly, I added, that temple has completely shut its doors now, seeing as I'm not even there anymore. Of course, if I ever want to go back one day, I can still go back alone and continue living there. In just a few brief words, I finished summarizing my past experiences. My tone remained completely calm and detached the whole time, with no complaints, not a shred of whining in my words, and zero blaming of fate. Yet Pei Shuoro and Mu Fu listened with their hearts aching terribly. The couple both involuntarily reddened around the eyes. Mu Wanting and her 4 sisters were also stunned, their feelings extremely complex. They hadn't expected that while they were completely unaware their biological brother, who should have been a Mu family's esteemed little young master, pampered and cherished in the palms of the entire family's hands. Yue couldn't help feeling a bit guilty herself, feeling that her attitude just now was truly way too excessive. Seeing this, Mu Xuan screamed yikes, in her heart, convinced that I must be deeply scheming and calculating. The words I had just spoken were clearly intentionally acting pitiful to win everyone's sympathy. She reflexively wanted to open her mouth to apologize again, then abruptly remember my attitude from earlier, forcing the words back down her throat. She changed her approach, adopting a self-proclaimed clever angle. Xiaochen, now that you're finally home, life from here on out is definitely going to get better and better. Since you've just returned to this family, you must still not be used to it. If there's anything you're unfamiliar with or don't understand, you can feel free to come find me anytime. I will definitely do my absolute best to help you out. If you don't mind in your heart and are willing, I could take you out to walk around and check out the sights, so you can get used to the environment here as fast as possible. All right then, thanks. Pei Shuoro gripped my hand tightly and also chimed in with those words, her gaze overflowing with deep heartache and guilt. Scolding me is fine. Master and I were doing great before, although living conditions were indeed a bit harsh. The Taoist temple was very quiet and comfortable. Master was also extremely fond of me. So ever since I was little, I actually lived a very happy life. What I just said wasn't actually false. The real Myukin really had lived quite happily before, For all these years, although the living conditions in the temple weren't all that great, his master had always doted on him tremendously, doing everything in his power to give him the absolute best of everything. Besides, there were barely a few people in the temple normally, and the interpersonal relationships around him were extremely simple and pure. His daily life was completely carefree, running off to the back mountains to play with animals whenever he felt lonely as a child, managing to have an absolute blast in the mountains all by himself. Days passed by without a care or worry in the world. Mukun had once said he never felt like life was bitter. To him, the true bitterness was when his master fell gravely ill, reaching the point of advanced decline where nothing could be done to save him. Master was the only loved one he had in this world, the final emotional and spiritual sustenance for all his feelings, and also how he first tasted the pain of permanent parting by death. After Master passed away, he guarded the Taoist temple all by himself, not even having a single person around to speak heart to heart with. Every single day was spent entirely alone and desolate. Half a month before Mu Fu found him, Mukun had gone to the back mountains to gather firewood and accidentally tumbled down a cliff. There was only him alone on that remote, bare mountain, so absolutely no one knew about him falling off the cliff. And so, he quietly passed away just like that. His soul after death went straight to the city of the dead, while I happened to return to the city to handle routine affairs. Seeing Mukin's soul, I discovered his destiny was quite peculiar, judging by his birth date and physiognomy. He was originally meant to have a life of immense wealth and smooth sailing, an extremely rare destiny blessed with both great fortune and longevity in this world. This kind of destiny is generally the accumulated karmic reward of accumulated virtue. Yet now, he happened to show up in Wangzichen, which proved that he had already unfortunately met an unnatural death outside. The destiny that rightfully belonged to him had been artificially altered. Coincidentally, some major trouble had recently cropped up in Wangzichen, and I needed to make a personal trip down to the mortal realm, so I proactively sought him out for a fair transaction. I would borrow Mukin's identity in the mortal world to take care of business, each taking what we needed. That was how today's events at the Mu family came to be. They certainly wouldn't believe what I just said, especially the couple Mu Fu and Pei Shuero, who increasingly felt that their biological son was a considerate and kind-hearted good child. They figured these words were all said just to comfort them. In their hearts, they were aching for their pitiful biological son, who was clearly fated to be a pampered young master the moment he was born, yet ended up wandering outside and suffering over a decade of hardship for nothing. They secretly swore that they would definitely double down on compensating their biological son in the future. The atmosphere at the dining table grew heavy because of my words, with everyone harboring their own complex thoughts inside. The four sisters of the Mu family also stopped looking for trouble, silently lowering their heads as they ate their meal quietly. Mu Fu and Pei Shuero's entire hearts were completely focused on me, asking every now and then with gentleness whether the food suited my taste. Xiaochen, which dish do you like more? Would you like Mom to ladle you some hot soup? The care was practically meticulous in every way. Mu Xuan, sitting off to the side, wore an expression of undisguisable disappointment. Mu Yue saw this and tried to speak up a few times, but when her gaze swept over me, her biological younger brother, she abruptly remembered those words I had spoken earlier, forcing the words at the tip of her tongue back down involuntarily. I focused entirely on savoring the delicious delicacies on the table. This scene, falling into the eyes of the Mu family members, took on yet another meaning. Pei Shuero looked at me with tear-filled eyes, her heart aching to an extent that words couldn't even begin to describe. Just looking at it, she knew that back on a mountain, her son surely had very few opportunities to eat anything this sumptuous and delicious. After all, living in a remote, bare mountain, temple on a slope, one could easily imagine just how harsh the living conditions were. Being able to fill his stomach every day could already be considered decent. How could there ever be any chance to taste rare delicacies from land and sea. Peishiro had already secretly made up her mind in her heart. From now on, she would cook up different things for me every single day. After dinner, the kids all obediently sat in the living room facing Mu-Fu, ostensibly claiming they wanted a bond with their newly returned younger brother. I sat comfortably in the center of the living room, on a spacious, genuine leather sofa, gazing with keen interest at the super large LCD TV right in front of me, watching the imagery on the screen with great relish. Xiaochen, do you really like watching TV that much? Peishiro asked me with a gentle smile. My eyes were fixed straight on the television set. As I nodded forcefully, television is seriously so interesting. The pictures inside are way more fun to watch than the theatrical performances on an opera stage. I haven't come down to this bustling mortal world in so long. I never expected that the mortal world nowadays would change by this much. I feel like I'm currently just a country bumpkin who just entered the city. Watching this expression of mine, Peishiro's eyes grew red once more. My poor biological son, he's already grown up this big, yet he hasn't even properly watched a television set before. Just as she was thinking this, the program on TV suddenly cut to commercials. Seeing this, Peishiro immediately picked up the remote on the table. Xiaochen, Mom will help you switch to another channel to watch. The TV series you were just watching finished broadcasting today. Let's change the station and check out some other programs. There's still plenty of good-looking and interesting TV shows out there. I nodded obediently, putting on exceptionally well-behaved and docile appearance. Peishiro casually pressed the remote to switch channels. The Jianxin channel happened to be broadcasting a family ethics drama, so she put down the remote in her hand. Yet before long, the expressions of the entire family turned awkward, especially Muxuan sitting off to the side, whose fair, delicate face instantly flushed bright red. Her gaze was filled with an inability to conceal shame, anger, and pent-up frustration. And things just happened to be this coincidental. The plot playing out on television was precisely the trope of fake versus real young masters, a story about two children whose identities were accidentally swapped since childhood. And today, it happened to be airing the segment where the real young master is reclaimed. Watching the television screen, Peishiro was also completely dumbfounded. I had casually cut to a channel, and the plot broadcasting on the screen was identical to the situation at home. This scene was practically awkward to the extreme. In the show, the protagonist is welcomed back by his biological parents. The real son returns, but instead of sending the adopted child away, the parents pamper him even more intensely, treating him even better than their biological son. They treat the adopted child like the apple of their eye, while the biological son ends up treated like a blade of grass. The living room instantly became permeated with an inexplicably awkward atmosphere. Yet I casually offered commentary. People in this world, why don't they dote on their biological son and instead show favoritism toward an adopted child, even though they've been raised by their side for years? Reluctance to let go is human nature, but you can't wrong your own flesh and blood. I shook my head repeatedly to express my incomprehension. The Mu family members felt like I was taking a subtle jab at them, except they couldn't produce any evidence. Though they hadn't sent Muxuan away, they definitely hadn't shown favoritism either, nor had they given Mukin the cold shoulder or wronged him. They truly couldn't bear to part with Muxuan. After all, having raised her for over a decade, feelings accumulate day by day, and you can't just toss someone away the moment you decide to. Yet they drew a clear line. No matter what, Muxuan would never be placed above Mukin. Therefore, they felt that Mukin was merely commenting on the TV show, and definitely wasn't taking a subtle jab at them. Even if it really was a subtle jab, then that was taking a jab at the several daughters. Mu-Fu and Peishiro consoled themselves inwardly, masking the guilty conscience deep in their hearts. At first, they had indeed thought about sending Muxuan away, allowing Muxuan to buy a house outside once she reached adulthood, sending her living expenses on time, and fully supporting her until she finished university. Yet their daughters fought desperately against it, strongly discouraging them, coupled with the fact that they themselves were soft-hearted. Mu-Fu glared fiercely at his daughters. Muxuan could no longer stay here, covering her face with low sobs. She turned around and ran all the way up the stairs. I looked over with a bewildered expression. What was her deal this time? Mu Yue's face was dark, forcibly restraining herself from making a sound, barely managing to hold back and stay silent. Pei Shuuro smiled somewhat constrainedly. It's nothing. It's probably just that he wasn't used to it for a moment. I frowned slightly. In that case, now that I've moved back in, won't he end up crying every single day? Wouldn't that drive people out of their minds with annoyance? Pei Shuuro was instantly choked up, feeling a sense of exhaustion in her heart. Are you doing this on purpose? Mu Yue ultimately couldn't hold it in. I immediately shot her a look, blinking innocently. What on purpose? Mu Yue glared at me through clenched teeth. You were deliberately provoking him just now. Mom and Dad both said they'd properly make it up to you. So what else are you unsatisfied with? Do you only happy when you force Mushuan away? I finally understood the situation at this point. I tossed the remote onto the table with a thud and stood straight up, stepping coldly right up to Mu Yue. Then are you trying to force me away? To make room for your good younger brother? I come back to my own home and can't even speak freely. And when I do speak, I have to cater to the fake young master's feelings. After saying that, I turned on my heel and walked off. The living room instantly grew dead silent. Mu Fu stomped over in a fury and muttered a few words to his youngest daughter, chewing out Mu Yue until she was begging for mercy repeatedly. I'm warning you girls, if you ever give Muyukin this kind of attitude again, I'm going to kick every single one of you out. His expression turned incomparably stern. You all need to understand. Muyukin is your biological younger brother. Your very own flesh and blood younger brother from the same mother. In this matter of him and Mushuan swapping identities, he is far more innocent than Mushuan. You guys only worry about Mushuan getting wronged. Why don't you think about how many wrongs your biological brother suffered all these years, and how much hardship he endured? The Mu family doesn't mind continuing to raise him, but he must never overstep Muyukin. Mu Fu's gaze landed on his youngest daughter, his complexion extremely ugly. You and Mushuan are close in age, and you've always been the closest since childhood. I can understand you looking out for him, but you must make it clear in your head. Muyukin didn't do anything wrong, nor does he owe any of you a single thing. I'll only say these words once. From now on, whoever dares to make Muyukin sad again, see if I don't skin them alive. Mu Yue's mouth twitched slightly, feeling as though this was entirely directed at her. Dad, you can rest easy. We know how to handle things. Muwani chimed in, once again explaining what happened today. We thought you guys wouldn't get back so fast, which is why we agreed to go watch his competition. Had we known you'd be back early, I definitely wouldn't have gone to watch the match. Mu Ruolin and Mu Yakin nodded. These two were a pair of twin sisters. Mu Fu and Pei Shuuro went upstairs with dark faces, leaving the four sisters staring blankly at each other in the living room. Big sis, don't you feel like this younger brother of ours seems a bit? Mu Ruolin paused for a moment, taking quite a while to come up with a suitable word to describe their newly returned brother. Special. His personality is actually pretty unique. Recalling tonight's events, Mu Wanting nodded in deep agreement. He's someone who refuses to take a loss, and with one mouth he can argue circles around people. Still, it doesn't seem like he did it on purpose, nor was he maliciously trying to provoke anyone. He just says whatever's on his mind, without knowing how to be tactful. His temperament is just a bit too blunt. Thinking of how the other younger brother had acted, her brow involuntarily furrowed. Mushuan is indeed way too sensitive. If he keeps acting like this going forward, and doesn't adjust his mindset in time, the one who's going to end up suffering and feeling miserable is still going to be himself. Just like Dad said a moment ago, even though we've lived with him for over a decade, and have deep bonds leaning in his favor, it's impossible for us to go over and over again, wronging our biological brother for his sake. So this mindset of his really has to change. Mu Wanting turned her head to look at Mu Yue. You and Mushuan are the closest, and you're the closest in age. You should talk to him and guide him properly, and tell him to stop overthinking things. When Muyukin comes back, Mom and Dad are definitely going to lean a bit more toward him, and that's only human nature. But it doesn't mean they're going to treat Mushuan differently. He's still Mom and Dad's son. Although Mu Yue was young and impulsive, she was by no means a brainless person. She nodded solemnly. I know. And also, Mu Wanting's expression tightened, bringing out the majesty of an eldest sister. You need to have a better attitude toward Muyukin from now on, or don't blame me for dealing with you. After disciplining her youngest sister, Mu Wanting also got up and returned to her room. Mu Ruolin and Mu Yakin exchanged glances. Let's go. Mu Yue was beyond pissed off. What kind of nonsense is this? Clearly everyone was in on it together. So how did it end up being entirely my fault by the end? I didn't care at all what the people downstairs were thinking. And as soon as I got back to my room, I locked the door behind me. This room had been painstakingly prepared by my parents, decorated very exquisitely. Both the design and the furnishings were in a style that a young boy would like. Thank goodness it wasn't pink. Otherwise, staying in a room like that, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to sleep all night. As soon as I entered the room, I sensed a trace of abnormal fluctuation in the air. With a gentle wave of my hand, I set up a barrier around the room to avoid being noticed by anyone and causing unnecessary suspicion. Right after that, a man wearing a black long robe and a little ghost mask appeared out of thin air inside the room. The man walked up to me, knelt on one knee, and said, "Your Highness." I looked at him and frowned slightly. "What are you doing here?" As soon as I asked, an ominous premonition arose in my heart. Sure enough, the city master ordered this subordinate to deliver a message. Big Sis has returned to the city of the dead. Wasn't he always staying in the 6th hall? How long has it been since he returned to the city of the dead? How come the moment I arrived in the mortal realm, he headed back to the city of the dead? Before coming out, I still harbored wishful thinking, supposing that once he finished handling things, he would head straight back to report. Big Sis hadn't even returned to the city of the dead yet. Who would have thought that things wouldn't go my way? The moment I sneaked out on my front foot, he followed right behind me and went back on his back foot. Thinking of the warning he had given me in the past, a flash of a guilty conscience crossed my eyes. Big Sis had repeatedly warned me back then that I must never come to the mortal realm without authorization, and that handling affairs in the city required prior discussion. Yet I happened to run into Mukin and felt the timing was just right. So taking advantage of the time Big Sis was away, I went ahead and arranged everything myself. Given Big Sis's severe temperament, I was afraid I was going to get chewed out this time. Reporting to your Highness, the city master has already returned to the city of the dead and discovered that your Highness came to the mortal realm without permission. My lord is extremely angry and therefore ordered this subordinate to deliver a message. With that, he stood up and made a gesture of casting a spell. A faint light flashed in midair, and an envelope materialized out of nothingness. Then the envelope slowly faded away, and a line of text clearly emerged, pulsing slightly in midair, before quickly dissipating into the atmosphere. Though the duration was extremely brief, I had already seen it crystal clear. They said it was a line of text, but it was really just 4 words, arriving shortly. This was truly giving people a headache. Wouldn't it be a bit bad for Big Sis to come to the mortal realm? The masked man's voice carried no fluctuation. Nobody can change your Highness's decision. That meant telling me to stop overthinking things and obediently get ready to welcome him. I instantly fell silent. The man quickly vanished from the room. I slumped like a deflated ball, my whole body feeling completely limp. Big Sis is coming over. How on earth is he planning to come? If he comes to the mortal realm using the identity of a city master, he definitely won't be able to stay for long. Thinking of this, I reignited my hope. As for being held accountable by him afterward, I did it for the sake of the city of the dead after all. Seeing as I had this in mind, he wouldn't be too harsh either. On the 3rd day, when a moved family members came downstairs, they saw me watching TV in the living room. Their footsteps instantly halted. They blinked hard, looked at the large clock in the living room, and everyone fell silent for a moment. It was barely past 6 o'clock in the morning. Hearing the commotion behind me, I, who had been completely engrossed in watching TV, got distracted. I turned my head to glance at the people coming downstairs and casually greeted them. "Good morning." Right after the greeting, I immediately turned back around to keep watching. That focused expression of mine, looking like I didn't want to waste even a single second. Peishiro froze for a moment, then snapped back to her senses and walked straight toward me, seating herself slowly beside me. She glanced at the television set. The screen was currently broadcasting the morning news. "Xiaochen, if you like watching TV this much, how about Mom has someone install one in your room? That way you can watch it right in your room too." At this point, Peishiro just wanted to do whatever it took to satisfy all of her son's wishes. Hearing this, my eyes lit up fiercely, and I was just about to nod and agree when Muwaning, walking down from upstairs, opened her mouth ahead of me. "Mom, that's not very appropriate. If we put a TV in younger brother's room, What's going to happen if he gets hooked and doesn't sleep at night? He's still growing right now. Her remark reminded Pei Shiwero just in time. Judging by her son's engrossed posture, if they installed a TV in his room, he would definitely end up pulling an all-nighter watching it. That absolutely would not do. She quickly corrected herself. Mom didn't think this through properly. That really won't work. We can't let it affect Xiaochun's rest. Let's just watch it in the living room instead. Mom can keep you company while you watch, and the two of us can even discuss the plot. My wonderful dream of pulling an all-nighter watching TV was shattered. So I shot Moo, wanting a resentful look. This eldest sister surely dislikes me a lot. She won't even spare me a television to watch. By comparison, Big Sis seemed much better after all. Sensing that her son was unhappy, Pei Shiwero felt both amused and overwhelmingly heartbroken. Which kid nowadays doesn't play on her phone? Nobody finds television rare at all. Yet her son was so intensely excited about it. Who would ever believe such a thing if she told them? She coaxed me in a soft, gentle voice. Having one installed in your room really isn't convenient and messes up your rest at night too much. You can't just stay cooped up in your room all the time either. A room is meant for sleeping. If you like watching, just watch it in the living room. Nobody in this house loves watching TV anyway, so nobody's going to fight you for it. After thinking it over, I realized that made sense. So I nodded like a well-behaved younger brother, then emphatically stressed one point. Then you guys absolutely must not fight me for the remote. Pei Shiwero couldn't help letting out a soft laugh, her gaze overflowing with maternal affection. All right. The TV in this house belongs entirely to you alone. If anyone dares to fight you for the channel, Mom will go chew them out for you. With that, she also gave a pointed glare at the daughters walking downstairs one after another. Moo Wanning's mouth twitched slightly. How long had it been since she even watched TV? How could she possibly fight little brother to watch television? If anyone was going to fight for it, it would be the fourth one. Moo Wanning glanced at her fourth sister. Mu Yue instantly reacted like she'd had her tail stepped on. Eldest sis, what are you staring at me for? Do you really think I'd fight him for the channel? I'm not that childish. As soon as she jumped up in protest, myself sitting in the living room, Pei Shiwero, the other three Mu daughters, Mu Xuan who just walked downstairs, and Mu Fu all looked over at her with varying gazes. I leisurely added a final blow. Even if you wanted to compete with me, you'd still have to see if you even had the skills for it. Pei Shiwero immediately barked at her youngest daughter. From now on, you are not allowed to fight Xiaochun for the TV. Did you hear me? If I find out you're bullying him, I'll have your dad dock all of your allowance and not leave you a single cent. Mu Yue instantly looked as aggrieved as a toad. Her cheeks puffed out with pure indignation. She glared at me fiercely several times under her breath, while I couldn't even be bothered to spare her the corner of my eye. She got so mad she didn't even want to eat breakfast. A normal child at this age would generally be in their senior year of high school, and Mu Xuan was supposed to take his college entrance exams next June. Mukin logically should be the same way, but he had lived in a Taoist temple all this time previously and had never received a proper, systematic education. Yet his age was right there. So which grade should he start learning from? Could he keep up if he went straight in his senior year? The matter of his school registration was easy enough to handle, but which grade he should read and gave everyone a headache. The more Mu Fu thought about it, the tighter his brow furrowed, and he brought up the matter of schooling with me. I happened to use this opportunity to understand the world. Mu Xuan at the side rolled his eyes and suggested with a fake smile, "How about having Xiaochun come to our class? That way it'll be convenient for me to look after him, and I can also help him with his studies." I didn't even bother looking at him. Mu Fu actually felt a bit tempted by the idea, yet he worried his son wouldn't be able to keep up with the coursework. If he couldn't keep up and his grades were too terrible. Mu Xuan's grades had always been exceptionally stellar, and when the two were compared side by side, besides the matter of the Mu family mixing up their children, could not be kept hidden within the social circle, nor had they ever intended to cover it up in the first place. Once everyone found out about it, when the time came, it would inevitably lead to people comparing the two of them. What if it hurt his son's self-esteem? Mu Wanning chimed in with a steady composure. "Dad, you don't need to worry too much about this. If younger brother can't keep up, we can just hire a private tutor for one-on-one coaching. We can also tutor him personally when we have free time. Next semester is about to end soon anyway. Little brother can enroll after the next semester starts and use this period of time to catch up on his studies properly. I believe there shouldn't be any major issues. Pei Shiuro's eyes lit up fiercely, and she clapped her hands together happily. That's right. How could I not have thought of this? We can hire a private tutor. Aside from fourth sis, who isn't great at studying, the three of you have stellar grades. So tutoring Xiaoqin on senior year coursework is definitely no problem at all. Saying this, she made up her mind right on the spot. First, let Xiaoqin rest at home for a couple of days, and then you three sisters can take turns. Each of you will tutor one subject to help Xiaoqin get familiar with the school curriculum as soon as possible. Mwanting nodded. We can do that. Since the eldest sister had nodded and agreed, the second and third sisters also nodded along. Mu Yue didn't know whether to feel relieved or annoyed for a moment. She had been looked down upon by people. I originally intended to open my mouth in refuse, but seeing that all three sisters had agreed, and Pei Shiuro was brimming with enthusiasm, I silently swallowed back the words of refusal. Mu Xuan bit his lower lip and lowered his gaze, concealing the deep grievance at the bottom of his eyes. The matter of the Mu family adopting the wrong child had long ceased to be a secret within high society circles, and his parents had never even thought of keeping it hidden. The two of them had even planned it out long ago. Once I got familiar with the environment, they would throw a banquet and invite the social elites of the circle to attend, openly and above board restoring my status, so that I wouldn't be mocked or wronged when going out in the future. Although I wasn't particularly fond of such occasions, I also understood this was a necessary procedure. Otherwise, outsiders would definitely wildly speculate and assume that I, the true young master, wasn't even welcomed, or was even suppressed by Mu Xuan, the fake young master. As soon as I grew slightly accustomed to the new environment, Pei Shiuro couldn't wait to drag me along, to go on a crazy shopping spree at a large department store. Aside from the eldest sister and father, who had to go to work, everyone else was dragged out to accompany me shopping. Yet they deliberately left Mu Xuan out all by himself. Mu Yue sat in the front passenger seat, puffed up with anger, and glared at me through the rearview mirror from time to time. I couldn't even be bothered to lift an eyelid. I could figure out what he was mad about using my toes. Mu Xuan was the one who didn't want to come along himself. Did they expect me to beg him? Arriving at the mall's parking lot, Mu Yue scrambled to go park the car. Mu Rulin and Mu Yakin accompanied Mother, and walked into the mall's main entrance with me, kicking off today's shopping journey. The few Mu daughters took full charge of carrying the shopping bags, while Pei Shiuro familiarly linked her arm through mine. As we were walking, I suddenly came to a halt, turned my head, and listened closely for a moment. Mom, did you guys hear a strange sound? I think I just heard a muffled thud, like something falling from a high place and smashing heavily onto the ground. And it definitely wasn't an ordinary object. That kind of sound was very special. Pei Shiuro tilted her head to listen as well. No, I didn't. This is a huge shopping mall, after all, and it's super lively. Even if there was some noise, it wouldn't carry over. It's definitely just the commotion of the crowd. Even as she spoke, Mu Rulin noticed something was off ahead, with faint screams drifting over in bursts. Mom, it looks like something happened up ahead. A flash of cold light crossed my eyes, and I grabbed Pei Shiuro's wrist in a backing grip. Mom, let's go take a look. Before anyone else could open their mouth to stop me, I was already pulling my mother and running swiftly, squeezing my way toward the direction where the incident had occurred, leaving the sisters standing blankly in place. Why is he so nosy? Mu Yue muttered as she hurried over after parking the car. Mu Rulin gave her a cold, flat glance. If Mom hears you, you're bound to get chewed out and scolded again. Mu Yue rolled her eyes speechlessly. We should hurry up and follow them to take a look too, in case something really goes wrong. Little brother could easily run into danger. Mu Yakin said steadily, picking up her pace to follow right behind them. Mu Rulin also walked over briskly, while Mu Yue trailed leisurely at the very back, being dragged along on a jog the entire way by her son, Pei Shiuro, soon arrived at the crowded gathering place. Seeing her son forcefully shoving his way into the crowd, she couldn't help twitching the corners of her mouth. Who would have ever guessed? Xiaoqin usually looked so cold and aloof. Yet he turned out to be a kid who loved watching the spectacle of a crowd so much. Oh my, looking at him now makes him feel even cuter, doesn't it? However, when Pei Shiuro clearly saw the scene ahead, her complexion instantly turned ashen white. She let out a terrified gasp and instinctively stepped forward to block my path, feeling that this still wasn't safe enough. She quickly turned around and covered my eyes, refusing to let me look at the horrifying scene before us. A serious accident had actually occurred right inside the shopping mall. I really just wanted to check out the situation. Why did she go and cover my eyes? I was someone from the underworld. I could tell at a single glance how this person died. If they really died, wouldn't they have to go to my city of the dead? Wouldn't he have to come to my underworld city? Wouldn't they just become one of my own subordinates? At this rate, the city of the dead was really getting overcrowded. Mom, I'm not a little kid anymore. I'm not scared. I gently pulled Pei Shiuro's hands down and said with absolute calm. Pei Shiuro gave me an exasperated roll of her eyes. How are you not a little kid? You haven't even had your birthday yet. What a miscalculation. Me, a dignified, 1,000-year-old ghost, had now become a little kid. Murulin caught up as well and blocked me behind her. I helplessly rubbed the bridge of my nose. The mall security had come out immediately to handle the situation, while simultaneously calling the police on the spot and summoning an ambulance, beginning to clear out the dense crowd of onlookers. Pei Shiuro wasn't about to let me indulge my curiosity, firmly pulling me away and making us leave quickly. Having ultimately been affected by this incident, since Pei Shiuro had bought pretty much everything she needed, she decided to head straight back home instead, and come back to shop another day when she had free time. With such a life-and-death matter happening, it truly felt a bit unlucky. Mom, you guys go on ahead and wait for me in the car. I'm going to step out into the hallway for some fresh air. Pei Shiuro originally wanted to accompany me, but I rejected her with absolute firmness. I wasn't a 3-year-old nursing baby. Did I really need a family member tagging along just to get some fresh air? I followed the indicator signs to the corridor, and just as I stood by the corridor window, a young man walked over. He was startled when he saw me standing by the window, then lowered his head and hurried past in a rush. My gaze locked firmly onto his retreating back, my nostrils flaring slightly. As I gently sniffed the air, I had caught a whiff of the scent of death. I deliberately dawdled by the window. That man quickly turned back around, and upon seeing that I was still standing by the window, he froze for a moment, as if he hadn't expected that I actually hadn't left yet. I waited leisurely for him to draw closer, then carefully took another sniff, confirming that I had indeed caught that scent of death coming off of him. Even though the scent was very faint, I couldn't help but give him a deep look. What are you staring at? Never seen a handsome guy before? The other party noticed my gaze right away, and, as if someone had stepped on his sore spot, snapped back defensively on the spot, before walking away in a hurried, panic stride. No matter how you looked at it, that retreating figure oozed guilt and panic. If a person's time was running out, their body would naturally carry a dense aura of death. The man from just now clearly wasn't like that, which left only two possibilities. Either he had picked it up from someone else, or he had killed someone with his own hands. The former had too many possibilities to draw a firm conclusion, while the latter scenario was much simpler and clearer. I couldn't help associating it with a young girl who had fallen from upstairs in the mall earlier. I calmly clapped my hands together and turned to leave. In the car, Pei Shiuro was waiting in absolute anxiety. Having experienced such a terrifying ordeal just moments ago, she still harbored an uneasy premonition in her heart, terrified that the son she had just gotten back might meet with an accident. It wasn't until they safely returned home that the heart she had kept hanging finally dropped completely. She quickly cast the mall incident to the back of her mind, bustling about back and forth to organize the things they had bought. As for me, the moment I got home, I sprawled across the sofa and turned the TV back on to watch with relish, effectively transforming into a die-hard television addict. Mu Ruolin and Mu Yakin went back to their rooms to work on their studies. Both sisters were top-tier academic prodigies, and were going to be seniors next year, so they had also become exceptionally busy with their coursework. Mu Yue was the laziest of all, seating herself slouchily on the living room sofa, watching Mom bustling about upstairs. Her mouth got the better of her for a moment, and she couldn't hold back, blabbing out in mockery, "Country bumpkin, what's so great about watching TV? You've clearly never seen the world." My eyes were glued dead to the television screen, yet I heard every word she said and nodded along, admitting with absolute nonchalance, "Yep, I grew up in a mountain Taoist temple since I was little, so of course I haven't seen the world. I was a prince of the city of the dead. After Big Sis dumped all the affairs onto me, I was so busy my feet barely touched the ground, so I truly didn't have time to pay attention to mortal trivia. I only knew the general situation at best, now that I had replaced Muyukin's identity. However, I needed to seize the time to understand this world, and I figured watching TV was the fastest method. You could know the affairs of the world without stepping out the door. How convenient and effortless was that? Muyue was choked up hard. You're definitely doing this on purpose, aren't you? You're deliberately bringing these things up to make us feel guilty and make us feel like we've wronged you, so that your position in this family will be secure. While Muyue babbled on incessantly from the side, I bestowed a disdainful glance upon her, looking at her as if she were an idiot. Catching the figure descending from upstairs out of the corner of my eye, I shouted loudly without an ounce of psychological pressure, "Mom, Muyue is yelling at me again. She's calling me a country bumpkin and saying I'm deliberately making you guys feel guilty, just to make you feel like you've wronged me. She's looking at me with such displeasure. Is she trying to force me to leave this home?" Muyue's eyes widened fiercely, and she nearly coughed up a mouthful of old blood. Before she even had time to react in any way, her ear was grabbed hard by someone. "Mom, calm down a bit. Don't listen to his nonsense." I absolutely didn't. Muyue gritted her teeth in pain, yet didn't forget to shout out in her own defense. I stretched out a finger, pointing it right at her nose and cheeks. My face puffed up in anger, while wearing a hint of perfectly timed grievance. She's the one who said it out of her own mouth. She said I was a country bumpkin who had never even laid eyes on a television set. I already explained that I grew up in a deep mountain Taoist temple, and it's totally normal that I haven't seen the world. And then she started saying Muyue opened her mouth, wanting to retort. Yet those were indeed the words she said, even though that wasn't what she meant at all. "I think your skin is itching and you're asking for a beating. Get over here right now, and let's see how I deal with you today. Stop standing around and disturbing your younger brother's TV time." Pei Shiuro didn't soften her heart at all this time, pulling hard on his ear and dragging him off to the side, fully determined to properly discipline this stubborn girl. She didn't know what was wrong with this child. Clearly, she doted on Mushuan so much that she pampered him like some rare, priceless treasure. So why was she picking on Xiaochun at every turn the moment he came back? Clearly, Xiaochun was her actual younger brother, bound by the blood ties of the same mother. To fail to distinguish between priorities like this meant she must have been disciplined far too lightly in the past. I cast a cold glance at the wailing Muyue, feeling not a shred of sympathy in my heart, and even shot her an extremely triumphant look that made Muyue mad enough to nearly ascend to the heavens on the spot. I consider the matter completely figured out now. Out of the 4 daughters in the Mu family, this Muyue had the worst brains of all, stupid beyond any hope of saving. My attention returned once more to the television screen, staring fixedly at the news channel, as if anxiously waiting for something. Sure enough, the local TV station broadcasted the incident from the mall. Around 11 o'clock this morning, a falling from heights incident occurred at the Seasons Mall in the city center. A young female local resident suffered a sudden accident in the mall and was heavily injured. Despite emergency rescue efforts, she unfortunately passed away. The specific cause of the fall was still under investigation by the police. The person really died. I slightly raised my eyebrows and narrowed my eyes. Cannot help but recall the person I had run into in the hallway. It was someone of a similar age, with an expression that was extremely panicked and guilty. The crucial point was that he carried the sin of death on him. Could that man have some connection to the deceased? Was the girl who fell from upstairs a case of accidental misstep, or suicide, or perhaps murder by someone else? I was dying to rush to the scene right away to investigate and see whether it was an accidental fate or a wrongful death. Yet I had only just returned to the Mu family not long ago, and I wasn't familiar with this city at all. Wanted to go out alone was probably as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Thinking up to this point, I had no choice but to temporarily shelve this thought. After watching the news broadcast, I leisurely stood up and slowly walked over toward the other side, seemingly acting out of kind intentions as I advised Mom, stop yelling at her anymore. Actually, what she said just now wasn't wrong either. My words weren't even finished yet. Muyue roared with a belly full of grievance. We don't need your fake kindness here. This truly poked a hornet's nest. Pei Shiuro, whose anger had almost subsided, saw her temper flare right back up. Xiaoqin, you don't need to worry about this stubborn girl. She's got thick skin. Even if a feather duster breaks over her, it'll be fine. Mom brewed some tonic for you in the kitchen. Hurry up and go see if it's done brewing. Pei Shuuro possessed a single-minded devotion to her son. I cast a sympathetic glance at Mu Yue, then turned around briskly to find something to eat in the kitchen. Mu Yue felt I was simply gloating and glared fiercely at my retreating back with a furious glare, only to be caught red-handed on the spot by Pei Shuuro. Mu Yue. Today she was definitely going to break a feather duster over her. I was still pondering what method I could use to find the man I had encountered in the corridor that day, when I never expected the opportunity to deliver itself right to my doorstep. The Mu family was going to host a grand recognition banquet. Nearly all of the high society elites and prominent figures across Heir had received invitations from the Mu family. On the day the banquet was held, the Mu family villa was extraordinarily lively. Exquisite fragrances drifted through the air as glasses clinked in toasts, and smartly dressed socialites could be seen everywhere, along with successful businessmen in tailored suits, gathering in twos and threes to converse. I had been staying upstairs in my room all along, while Pei Shuuro was tied up downstairs and couldn't get away, planning to come back upstairs and pick me up once the time arrived, so she could rightfully introduce me to everyone. Having changed into a high-end tailored suit, I figured the time was about right and stepped out of my room. As I passed by Mushuan's room, my footsteps paused slightly, and I tilted my ear to listen closely for a moment. It really wasn't that I intended. It was simply because the people inside, taking advantage of the noisy crowd downstairs, were speaking in voices a bit louder than usual. And coupled with the fact that I wasn't just some ordinary mortal, I was able to easily distinguish the voices the moment I listened. The woman talking with Mushuan was my nominal eldest aunt. Because of this grand recognition banquet, the Mu family members from Beijing had all come as well, including the eldest uncle's family who inherited the Mu family corporation, the ancestral home, and the majority of their assets, along with that high and mighty old Madame Mu. Though I felt their sincerity was just so-so. The banquet was clearly being held today, yet they didn't leisurely rush over until last night. Old Madame Mu moved into the Mu family villa, while the eldest uncle's family went straight to stay at a downtown hotel. I rested my chin on one hand and pondered silently. Mushuan and the eldest branch seemed to have a pretty good relationship. From start to finish, this eldest aunt had only given me an extremely superficial glance and casually brushed me off with a few polite pleasantries. Just as I was thinking this, footsteps moving around came from inside, and I quickly retreated back into my own room. It wasn't until the two of them left the room and went downstairs that I reopened my door and walked out. Pei Shuuro also happened to be coming upstairs to look for me, and upon seeing me all dressed up and fresh, she instantly smiled, her gaze filled with maternal love and amazement. "Xiaoqin, you look really handsome tonight." That remark wasn't false in the slightest. Pei Shuuro figured that probably due to his cultivation and keeping his entanglements with worldly troubles to a minimum, he had nurtured this clean and transparent temperament. The more she looked at him, the more she loved him. The more she looked at him, the more she cherished him. She secretly swore deep in her heart that she would definitely pull out all the stops to protect her son from now on. Let him maintain his current state forever, and let him live a carefree life for the rest of his days. The time is almost right. Mom will take you downstairs now. After walking a couple of steps, I asked as if acting completely nonchalant. Do we not need to call Mushuan to come along? No need. Tonight's banquet is held for you, after all. He's already with his eldest aunt anyway. It's fine. If we call him, he'd probably start overthinking things again. This child's thoughts have been super sensitive lately. This also left them not knowing what to do about it. The eldest aunt seemed to dote on him immensely. Based on what I had learned during this period of time, the relationship between my cheap dad and my eldest uncle seemed to be very ordinary. Otherwise, after the family split back then, he wouldn't have come straight to Heir to start building his career from scratch. Although they returned to Beijing for family reunions every year, that was purely out of respect for old Madame Mu's face. So why was the eldest aunt showing such partiality toward Mushuan? Pei Shuuro didn't find anything strange about it, explaining patiently, "You know how the situation in your dad's family is. He has an eldest brother and an elder sister. Your eldest uncle and eldest aunt don't have a son. And while your aunt did give birth to a son, after all, that's, well, only I gave birth to such a precious son like you. Because of this, Peishiro's heart was stained with guilt once more. The person who should have been enjoying all this love and pampering ought to have been her Xiaoqin. He was the young master held in the palm of the Mu family's hands. Yet fortune played tricks on people. Thinking of these past events brought another wave of heartache. I slightly raised my eyebrows. So it turned out to be because of this reason. I had returned to the Mu family for over half a month now, and tonight could be considered my first official public appearance. Pei Shuo and Mu Fu accompanied me on my left and right, and as I slowly walked down the stairs, my appearance and poise instantly grabbed everyone's attention, firmly locking down the gazes of the guests present. There wasn't the slightest trace of timidity or cowardice about me. The temperament exuded in every gesture and movement was unmistakably that of a prominent young master, carefully cultivated by a wealthy family pouring in countless resources. Seeing me as the center of all attention, Mu Xuan felt his heart experience a violent jolt, his gaze staring fixedly at my figure, unable to conceal the disappointment and deep jealousy at the bottom of his heart. Mu Xuan, don't panic. He's just putting on an act right now. Who doesn't know how to put on a facade? You're the young master raised by the Mu family. You must never forget that. You've lived in a Mu family for over a decade. So what if he's the biological son? Affection ultimately needs time to be nurtured. Fostering a sense of awareness of Mu Xuan's emotional fluctuations, Annie Bo patted the back of his hand soothingly and comforted him in soft, gentle tones. Mu Xuan barely squeezed out a bitter smile. Eldest aunt, I'm Fine. I'm actually really happy for them. Mom and Dad finding their biological son. That's a heaven-sent blessing. I enjoyed so many years in the Mu family. So when it all comes down to it, I'm the one who's wronged Xiaoqin. Sumanchi glared at him with annoyance, scolding in a low voice. What does this have to do with you? Weren't you just an infant back then too? It was your parents as adults who failed to watch over him properly, which led to this mess of switched identities. No matter who you blame, you can't pin it on your head. All right, put your heart back in your chest, and don't overthink it. I know your mom and dad's character very well. They raise you with care for all these years. So even if their biological son is back now, they definitely won't stop loving you. You need to straighten out your own mindset and not lower your own worth. All in all, you listen to me and remember this. You haven't made any mistakes whatsoever, nor have you wronged anyone. Do you understand? Mu Xuan bit his lip and nodded gently, saying nothing more that would annoy anyone. Mom and Dad indeed wouldn't stop loving him. But it was also definitely incomparable to how it used to be, before at home, and even within the entire Mu family clan, whether in Heir or over in Beijing. He was the sole golden grandson of the Mu family, with the entire family holding him in the palms of their hands, always granting his every request without fail. Everyone's eyes and hearts were entirely focused on him. But what about now? He clearly felt a massive gap. Ever since Mukin came back, Mom and Dad had no eyes for him anymore. Their hearts and minds were completely set only on Mukin, and even several of the older sisters were the same way. Only the fourth sister still wholeheartedly protected him. Just thinking about it made Mu Xuan feel incomparably aggrieved. Things that originally belonged entirely to him now had to be forcefully split in half and given away. Who could possibly stomach that kind of drop? During the moment, he was lost in thought. Father Mu and Pei Shiro had already, with utmost pomp and ceremony, introduced me to the guests from start to finish, making no attempt to conceal their regard and affection for me. Even the four Mu sisters were standing right by their parents' side. With this scene falling into the eyes of everyone present, it naturally took on a completely different flavor. Mu Xuan, aren't these Mu family members going way too far? Those folks are standing over there acting all lovey-dovey. Why did they purposely leave you out? Lu Manchi had gone off to socialize and network, leaving the wealthy young masters who usually hung out with Mu Xuan to crowd around him with indignation. Stop talking nonsense. Tonight was originally Xiaoqin's home turf. This banquet was specifically thrown for him, and he's the undisputed main character. What business would it be of mine if I went crowding up there? It wasn't that Father Mu and Pei Shiro intentionally meant to leave him out. Prior to this, Pei Shuuro had even proposed, having Muxuan go up on stage together when the time came, but Muxuan had refused with absolute determination. He insisted that Mukin was the real young master. And since this banquet was custom-made for Mukin, he truly shouldn't be standing up there. His words were extremely reasonable and mature. After pondering it over, Pei Shuuro felt that having him stand off to the side might not necessarily be a good thing for him after all, because doing so would inevitably invite comparisons, and instead make a situation even more awkward. So that idea was ultimately dropped. Yet even though it was dropped, deep down Muxuan still felt aggrieved. Even though he spoke that way just now, his tone couldn't conceal a sense of loss, which made his friends feel even more indignant on his behalf. Muxuan, even if that Mukin is the real young master, you've lived in a Mu family for over a decade too. There's no reason for them to squeeze you out just because he came back. The Mu family having one extra son makes no difference. And by the order of who came first, he's the outsider who showed up later. How can you talk about who came first and who came later? He's mom and dad's biological son, having suffered so much hardship in the deep mountain Taoist temple, whereas I enjoyed absolute luxury in the Mu family. It's completely normal for him to have resentment in his heart. I can understand all of that, and I will never hold it against him. Guxuan put on a magnanimous front, while the good friend beside him curled his lip in disdain, making no effort to hide the contempt and mockery in the depths of his eyes. A wild kid who grew up in a mountain Taoist temple might not even have seen what a TV looks like. It's hard to imagine there are still country bumpkins like that. Between you and a country bumpkin exhaling rustic air like that, anyone with half a brain knows who they should favor. You're the young master meticulously carved out and built by the Mu family using a fortune in money and effort. How could that country bumpkin ever compare to you? If Uncle Mu and Auntie Pei lose their grip on reality, sooner or later there will come a day when they regret it. Just waiting for this country bumpkin to humiliate the Mu family and make the Mu family the laughingstock of high society. Muxuan, your personality can't be too soft either. The more you back down like this, the easier it is for people to bully you. Things that belong to you are things you have to fight for. Muxuan nodded repeatedly. I know all of this. You guys can rest easy. No one is bullying me at home. Fourth sister is still just as good to me as before. Words that seemed comforting were actually stirring up trouble. By only mentioning that Mu Yue treated him the same as before, wasn't that just indirectly saying that the other three older sisters were already treating him less well than before? Had times changed? Did they want their adopted brother no longer once they got their biological brother? Seeing that he had achieved his goal while ahead, Muxuan didn't continue on. He didn't actually want to do anything truly bad. It was just that seeing Mukin steal the spotlight earlier suddenly made him worry that Mukin would quickly integrate into the circle and snatch away all the glory that rightfully belonged to him. That was why he thought about feeding his friend some drinks first. Word spreads from 10 to 100. And even if it couldn't truly stop anything, it could at least play a small role, right? Just as they were talking, several of them saw the absolute protagonist of tonight, meaning myself, walking toward this side. The expressions of several people shifted slightly, though they quickly put on a brave face of calm, self-soothingly thinking that I hadn't heard what they said just now. What was there to fear? What was there to feel guilty about? Muxuan actually felt a bit guilty in his heart as well. So he didn't notice that one of his good friends turned pale with fright upon seeing me, then swiftly lowered his gaze, his hands unconsciously twisting tightly together, before releasing them like he'd been electrocuted, feigning natural calmness. You look really handsome tonight. Muxuan smiled softly as he praised me. I nodded slightly. Me looking handsome, wasn't that just a matter of course? Speaking of which, it really was some kind of marvelous coincidence. His own appearance genuinely shared a few points of similarity with mine. When I saw Mukin's soul in the city of the dead, even I couldn't help being a little surprised. I hadn't expected that this newly arrived, unlucky ghost would actually look somewhat similar to me. Later on, after thinking it over carefully, this was probably predestined fate. I accepted the praise with an extremely nonchalant posture, my gaze landing on a man by Muxuan's side. And Muxuan appeared somewhat repressed, introducing him after glancing at his good friend. This is my good friend, Jiang Yin. He's the young master of the Jiang family. Muxuan and Jiang Yin had known each other the longest. The two of them had become inseparable friends back in elementary school, accompanying each other all the way up to the present. So it's young Master Jiang. I deliberately drew out the end of my tone, leaving a trace of profound meaning in my voice. Muxuan looked at the two of them with a strange expression, asking in confusion, "Xiaochen, do you know Jiang Yin?" Before I even had a chance to reply, Jiang Yin anxiously blurted out a denial. "No, we don't know each other at all." Yet he was acting so anxious that it instead seemed extremely abnormal and suspicious. The smile on my face grew even more meaningful. We really don't know each other. We just ran into each other in the mall corridor a few days ago." At that moment, I deliberately elongated my voice. Before I could even finish my sentence, Jiang Yin hurriedly interrupted me. I suddenly remembered I have an urgent matter to deal with, so I'll take my leave first. I'll catch up with you guys another day. Without waiting for Muxuan to respond, he turned around and fled. No matter how you looked at it, that retreating back looked like someone fleeing in panic. I originally had the intention to come over and probe him, never expecting Jiang Yan's mental fortitude to be this poor. Wasn't this practically making it blatantly obvious to me that there was definitely something wrong here? If nothing was wrong, what on earth was he panicking about? Thinking of this, I couldn't help casting my gaze back onto Muxuan. What on earth is he panicking so much for here? Thinking about this, I couldn't help casting my gaze toward Muxuan. Muxuan felt his whole body go rigid under my gaze, unaccountably feeling a wave of nervous pressure, and stammered out, "What's wrong?" That friend of mine. My speaking speed was sluggish and deliberate, as if I were purposely keeping Muxuan hanging. "Xiaochen, if Jiang Yin ever offended you before, please don't hold it against him. He definitely didn't mean to offend you. He's actually a pretty good guy." I smiled indifferently. "It's fine, since he's your good friend. How about we invite him over as a guest at the house another day?" Muxuan was obviously stunned for a moment, opening his mouth as if wanting to say something, yet I didn't give him the chance to speak at all. "I think the day after tomorrow works best. You invite him over to the house as a guest, and I'll have the kitchen prepare things in advance to make some high-end desserts to host him. The day after tomorrow, the eldest branch of the family will be heading back to Beijing anyway." My tone wasn't discussing things with him. It was issuing a cold notification. As soon as I finished speaking, I turned around and walked away, giving Muxuan zero opportunity to refuse, leaving Muxuan and his friend staring blankly at each other, with their minds full of question marks. Me setting my sights on Jiang Yin wasn't without reason either. Aside from smelling the scent of death on him that day, there were also related reports on the news later on, stating that the young girl who fell from the mall that day died from an accidental fall. If it really were an accidental fall, that would be one thing, but the problem was I genuinely sensed lingering resentment. Resentment coming from that girl who fell, even though I was currently residing in the mortal world. When new members were added to the City of the Dead, I naturally still had some perception of it. When Yimo got pulled into a dispute, and ultimately suffered the misfortune of an accidental fall, yet the truth had been covered up by them. How many people die normal deaths and abnormal deaths in this world every single day? It wasn't every wrongful death that I was able to perceive that required triggering a certain kind of opportunity as well. I figure it was probably because that day at the mall, I happened to be right at the crime scene and had close contact with the deceased, which was why I acutely sensed her resentment. The City of the Dead was the place where those who met an accidental demise stayed. Those who passed away normally went through normal procedures, and the underworld would then judge where they should go next based on their life's deeds. Most people reincarnated. A small number ascended to heaven due to their merits, and another portion was sent to the City of the Dead until their originally decreed lifespan ended. As for those who were innocently implicated by others, they also had to wait until the truth came to light, and their resentment completely dissipated before they could continue their cycle of reincarnation. Yet, right now, the City of the Dead was overcrowded. Souls that should have been reincarnating anew remained delayed and unable to leave, forced to linger on. Day after day, year after year, the number of people coming to the City of the Dead remained massive, while those leaving grew fewer and fewer. If things kept going like this, the City of the Dead would cease to exist, and tens of thousands of souls would dissipate along with it. Tracing the root cause, the gate of reincarnation had somehow closed and could not be opened. so the ghosts naturally had no way to leave. Big Sis and I had pondered over this problem for a long time, and after searching for many methods, we still couldn't solve it. Later on, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva gave a hint, and Big Sis and I had a sudden epiphany, which then led to my trip down to the mortal world. The purpose of coming here was simply to gather merit and faith, in order to restart the gate of reincarnation and get the city of the dead functioning again. Now that the opportunity had delivered itself to my doorstep, there was no way I was going to push it away, right? No matter how much Muxuan thought about it, he couldn't figure out what on earth I was trying to do. After the banquet, he mentioned this matter to Pei Shiwero. He originally thought that, given how much Pei Shiwero cared about me now, she might refuse, only to find that she happily agreed to it. Since he couldn't get his way and go out when it came to Pei Shiwero, when he ran into Mu Yue instead, a flash of scheming crossed his expression. He greeted her as usual, then put on a hesitant look that left much unsaid. Anyone with clear eyes could tell he had something to say, let alone Mu Yue, who cared about him so much. Originally, Mu Yue had wanted to dodge him. She was feeling a bit guilty because she felt Xiaoxian had been wronged during tonight's events. Tonight's events made her feel like Xiaoxian had been wronged, yet there was nothing she could do about it either. Xiaoxian had grown up alongside her, spoiled by the rest of them for over a decade, while Xiaochun was also her biological younger brother. Both the palms and the backs of the hands were made of flesh. If she were to say that to keep Xiaoxian from feeling wronged, she would let Xiaochun suffer wrongs instead, that definitely wouldn't do. If she dared to do that, Mom and Dad would dare to sweep her right out the door. So for a moment, she didn't know how to face it either, and figured it was better to avoid Xiaoxian. Yet seeing him with that troubled look, wanted to say something while holding back with apprehension. Her heart still softened. Xiaoxian, do you have something you want to say to fourth sister? Muxuan bit his lip and hesitated for a moment. Fourth sister, Xiaochen. I don't know if Jiang Yin offended Xiaochen and made him unhappy. If that really is the case, then I'm willing to apologize on Jiang Yin's behalf. But Xiaochen, he asked me to invite Jiang Yin to our house. Fourth sister, do you think Xiaochun wants to cause trouble? Moyuvi's brows furrowed tightly, evidently also feeling that what I did was strange. After thinking about it, she said, it's fine. I'm free anyway, and I'll stay at home when the time comes. I won't let him run wild. Muxuan fell silent for a moment. Can I just forget it? Xiaochun is also my brother, and Jiang Yin is my good friend. I don't want the two of them to have any conflict. Mu Yue scratched her head. Xiaoxian, you know what the situation at home is like right now. If he wants to invite your friend over as a guest, Mom and Dad will definitely agree. Not only will they agree, they'll even be very happy, so there's simply no reason to refuse. If he brought it up and said no, you could bet Mom would laugh at him again. Seeing Muxuan's crestfallen expression, Mu Yue patted her chest in assurance. Don't you worry, I'll keep an eye on him when the time comes, and absolutely won't let him bully Jiang Yin. With things having reached this point, Muxuan had no other alternative left. The reason he wanted to stop it was also because he had a sort of inexplicable unease in his heart. He still believed quite firmly in his intuition, but since he couldn't stop it, he could only think of other ways. All in all, tonight's welcome banquet went off quite successfully. Old Madame Mu, though not showing herself to be all that enthusiastic and joyful, wasn't truly foolish enough to pull any inappropriate stunts on an occasion like this. The entire evening passed safely and peacefully, with guests and hosts thoroughly enjoying themselves. Ever since I returned to the Mu family, I had always enjoyed my freedom, being that way from practically any perspective. Pei Shiwero and Mu Fu had never demanded that I must do things a certain way, only telling me to be as comfortable as I pleased after coming home. I slept until I woke up naturally every single day anyway, since getting up early served no purpose, coupled with the fact that I stayed up late online every day to familiarize myself with and understand this world. Sleeping a bit later was completely excusable. No one in the Mu family would ever scold me for it. Yet I forgot that there were a few extra people around now, and they seemed to dislike me quite a bit. The moment I came downstairs in the morning, someone started lecturing me. The elders are all already up, yet you're just now sleeping until this hour. Old Madame Mu saw me coming down the stairs, her pupils rolling as she cast a sidelong glance at me, speaking with extreme dissatisfaction. Look at our Xiaoxian. upright, and early helping prepare breakfast. You ought to learn from Xiaoxian in this regard. At the very least, have a bit of filial piety toward your elders. Pei Shuuro grew displeased the moment she heard those words. Mom, there's nothing going on at home that needs help with. The kids can sleep as long as they want. Besides, it's not even late now. Xiaoxi hasn't even gotten up yet either. Furthermore, having filial piety isn't measured by whether you wake up early or late. Pei Shuuro subconsciously defended her own son, unaware that by defending him like this, her words ended up hurting Mushuan's heart. Wasn't this implying that he deliberately woke up early to make breakfast just to curry favor with everyone? I remained completely unmoved, casually sitting down and looking at Mushuan with an expression of sudden realization as I said, "It's been quite a while since you've come back too. You've been back for quite a long time now. It seems I've never eaten breakfast prepared by you. Did you make too little, or did everyone finish eating and leave none for me? I see you getting up later than me every single day. Turns out you always get up first to make breakfast, then go back to sleep afterwards." Mushuan's face turned completely red. Ever since I came back, he felt uncomfortable inside, and out of awkwardness, tried his best to avoid me, which was why he always woke up so late. Plus, it was vacation time anyway. So, throughout the day, aside from coming downstairs for 3 meals, he basically stayed in his room the rest of the time. As for breakfast, there were servants in the house, and since he was the young master of the Mu family, how could he possibly cook often? Seeing Grandma praise you like that, "The breakfast you make must taste amazing. I want to try some tomorrow," I said with a smile, not forcefully demanding that Mushuan make breakfast. Yet the meaning behind my words was self-evident. Old Madame Mu grew even more displeased. "There are servants in the house. Why are you ordering Xiaoxian around?" Looking at her in confusion. How is this ordering him around? He kept calling himself my older brother. So an older brother making breakfast for his younger brother. What's wrong with that? Besides, I was also doing this to show Grandma a quiet bit of filial piety. Everyone at the dining table, except for Pei Shuuro, had an expression of listening to me spout nonsense. My expression was dead serious. Cooking skills are forged through practice. Without practice, where do good cooking skills come from? If I prepared breakfast for Grandma, and my cooking skills weren't good, what if something went wrong? Grandma is getting up there in age, and her body really couldn't handle being tossed around. Saying this, I sighed once more, taking on a selfless look. I'm different though. I suffered so much hardship back in my youth, so I'm used to it. It's just right to let him practice his skills on me, acting as a little white mouse. At this point, even Pei Shuuro's filter shattered. How could Xiaochun say such shameless words? With a completely straight face? Mushuan was practically on the verge of being cornered to tears by me. Lu Manchi furrowed her brows tightly. You child have far too strong a personality. Your grandma only said 1 sentence to you, yet you talk back with 10. Aren't you afraid of angering your grandma? Besides, Xiaoshuan's good intentions were twisted by your words into something else. He looked at me with a face full of disapproval. I know you have anger in your heart, feeling that Xiaoxian enjoyed blessings for so many years and took what belonged to you. Yet Xiaoxian was still just an infant back then. What could he possibly have known? He was just as innocent as you. So why must you target him? Xiaoxian has a gentle personality, and since he says he treats you as a younger brother, then he definitely treats you as a younger brother. Isn't it great to just have an extra older brother care for you? Why be like this? He shook his head, with a face full of disappointment. The fury in Pei Shuuro's heart was off the charts. She forcefully held herself back from acting out, but her expression obviously turned quite ugly. Sister-in-law, you've misunderstood. Xiaoxian isn't targeting anyone. It's just that his personality is too direct, and he doesn't know how to beat around the bush when he speaks. In reality, he has no malicious intent. Yeah, how could I possibly have any malicious intent? Nor am I targeting him. My attitude toward him is even better than my attitude toward fourth sister. If you don't believe me, ask him yourself. It's precisely because I know he's also innocent that I didn't let mom and dad chase him out, allowing him to continue staying in the Mu family as the young master. Isn't this enough? I was practically moved to tears by my own kindness. I had never seen anyone as magnanimous as myself. The expression on my face was innocent and pure. I'd already gone this far. Yet Auntie still felt I was bullying him. Could it be she wanted me to hand my identity over to him as well, and hand my biological mom and dad over to him too? I purposely placed heavy emphasis on the three words biological mom and dad. Lu Manchi was choked into utter speechlessness. What else could she possibly say? Perhaps my expression was too genuine, to the point that even Lu Manchi couldn't figure out whether I said those words intentionally or unintentionally. Old Madame Mu was likewise choked quite severely, reflexively wanting to use her elder status to pressure people. Yeah, I didn't give her the chance to speak, since you're also worried that I'll bully Muxuan. And I hear from Mom and Dad that everyone cherishes him so much. How about this? From now on, let him live with Grandma. Anyway, he's not a child anymore. He doesn't need people taking care of him every moment. Living with Grandma will let him show more filial piety to Grandma and make breakfast for Grandma every single day. I shook my head with feigned cuteness. This way, he can both show filial piety to Grandma and not have to worry about being bullied by me. It's killing two birds with one stone. The entire dining table fell silent. Old Madame Mu and Lu Manchi glared at me. Pei Shiro didn't know what expression to make. And as for Muxuan, naturally, he was terrified. Xiaochun, please stop talking. Grandma and Annie didn't mean that. They were just too worried about me. I really haven't suffered any grievances. Mom, Dad, and my sisters are all equally good to me. Of course, you haven't bullied me either. Don't take what Grandma and Annie said to heart. If he moved out to live with Grandma, then what would he be considered? Wouldn't his status become even more awkward? He was a son of the Mu family. He would be one for the rest of his life. With a pleading look, he gazed at the two elders. The two of them truly doted on him, so they forcefully swallowed this grievance for his sake. The atmosphere of the dining table finally returned to normal, except that everyone found their food somewhat tasteless. Of course, this person did not include me. I ate so deliciously that I even had an extra bowl more than usual. The thickly brewed millet porridge, paired with side dishes, was truly refreshing and appetizing. Seeing me like this, those two elders could only feel a fire burning within their chests. On the third day, as soon as the eldest branch and old Madame Mu left, I urged Muxuan to invite Jiang Yin over as a guest. Jiang Yin actually wanted to refuse, but thinking of the hallway incident, he hardened his resolve and arrived at the Mu residence as promised. Pei Shiro was very welcoming and had Muxuan accompany him. While I arrived fashionably late, the moment he saw me, a guilty Jiang Yin immediately grew tense, wondering how he could evade the Mu family members and have a proper chat with me. Yet I played completely outside the rules, lifting my chin toward Mu Yue and Muxuan. You guys step aside for a moment. I have something to discuss with this Mr. Jiang. Muxuan's expression completely changed. Jiang Yin was his good friend, yet now he was being told to step aside. Mukin, what are you trying to do? If Jiang Yin offended you in any way, just clearing the air with words should be enough. You can't just invite people over and then bully them. I cast a disdainful glance at Mu Yue. If you got nothing to do, use your brain more. That thing on your shoulders isn't there just for decoration, nor is it meant to make you look tall. There are 4 sisters in the Mu family. The other 3 seem quite smart and have good situational awareness. So how come this one is so uniquely different? Mu Yue was beyond furious. Opening her mouth as if wanting to say something more, I loudly shouted, "Mom." Mu Yue gave a start, reflexively snapping her mouth shut. Pei Shiro heard the shout and hurried out. Xiaoqin, what is it? I want to take Muxuan's friend to the garden. Is that okay? Pei Shiro didn't find it strange at all, instead saying with a smile, "Go ahead. The sun is quite strong right now, so make sure you don't get sunburnt." Muxuan hastily chimed in, "I'll go along too." He truly couldn't set his mind at ease, always feeling that my inviting Jiang Yin as a guest had an ulterior motive. I wasn't about to give anyone face, rejecting him directly. No need. We'll go and be right back. You should just stay here and keep her company. I glanced sideways at Mu Yue, speaking with sarcastic undertones. He specifically stayed at home to keep you company, to prevent others from bullying you. With that, I turned on my heel and walked off, not even worried that Jiang Yin wouldn't follow behind. Mu Yue wore an awkward expression. In his heart, he increasingly felt that this biological younger brother was someone full of scheming. Just look at what he said earlier. Wasn't it just dropping eye drops on Mom to imply that he suspected he would bully Muxuan, which was why he stayed behind a home? This scheming ghost. What are you looking for me for? Jiang Yin looked at me with a guarded gaze, and before I could even reply after he finished asking, he quickly blurted out, "I don't know what you're trying to do. I didn't offend you that day in the hallway either." Could it be just because I glared at you? I interrupted his words. What relationship do you have with that person who fell from the building? Did you have contact with her before the incident happened? Or I slowly turned around, tilting my head, a pair of clean eyes seeming capable of seeing through everything. Actually, the matter is related to you guys, isn't it? Jiang Yan's expression changed drastically, denying it with a shrill voice. Yet the depths of his eyes couldn't stop revealing a trace of fear and panic. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you know better than anyone else. That was a covered-up accident. She was implicated and lost her life. You tell me, if I go file a police report. Jiang Yan had already leaked crucial information with those words. I spread my hands. What evidence do I even need? I just need to mention it like that, and naturally someone will go look for evidence. I wonder if such a matter gets out about Mr. Jiang. Will his reputation be affected? Are you threatening me? Don't think that just because you're a young master I'm afraid of you. Compared to Mu Xuan, what do you even amount to? Do you think you can replace Mu Xuan? In your dreams, Mu Xuan has lived in a Mu family for over a decade. His relationship with the family is something you can't compare to. I looked at him strangely. Why would I want to compare myself to Mu Xuan? He was an adopted son, while I was the biological son. Groping around to replace an adopted son, my brain wasn't diseased. In addition, let me correct you. I'm not threatening you, but rather reminding you that if you want people not to know, you must do nothing wrong. That was a living human life. Do you think everything is all hunky-dory just because the case was closed? After saying this with profound meaning, I turned on my heel and walked away. Asking clearly was just to save time anyway, even if I didn't speak up. Once that girl's resentment grew strong enough, my identity would make her come looking for him anyway. Jiang, you didn't take my words to heart at all. Mu Xuan wanted to ask me what on earth I'd said, to make Jiang Yan leave in a fury, and whether I had really bullied someone. Yet looking at my expression, he felt that if he asked those words out loud, I would definitely make him wish he could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. I was still wondering how long it would take for the matter to blow up, never expecting the speed to be unexpectedly fast. Seeing it kicking up a fuss online, I thought it was me, yet upon second thought, it felt only natural. I learned quite a lot from watching TV every day. Nothing in this society moved faster than the internet. Once a matter spread online, it was more useful than any form of publicity. I felt this was indeed the fastest way. Perhaps because they had encountered it at the mall. Pei Shuo also sighed upon seeing the news. She originally thought it was a pure accident, never expecting such a matter to be stirred up. If it was like what her parents said, then it was truly too tragic. That girl who fell from the building was only 25. How young? I heard she was even an only daughter. And just like that, she was gone. It was no wonder her parents couldn't accept it and insisted on blowing the matter up. If it were her own son who died under unclear circumstances, she would definitely go crazy too. Thinking of this, Pei Shuo hurriedly comforted him in her heart. Only then, finding Xiaochen. The days ahead were still long. The mother and son still had plenty of time to get along. The victim's parents revealed to the media that their daughter had a gentle and quiet personality, with few friends, and an ordinary family background. Normally, she didn't have any high-end consumption. And unlike her peers who liked to buy, she rarely purchased personal items. The money she earned from work was all handed over to them for household expenses. And the money he earned from work was all handed over to them as household expenses, and kept none of it to spend on herself. Normally, she just went straight from work to home. Yet she fell from a building at a high-end mall, a place she could never afford to patronize. Before she went out that day, she was somewhat abnormal, though they hadn't thought much of it at the time, never imagining it would turn out like this. In the end, they initially thought it was an accident, but going through her belongings revealed a secret. Their daughter had suffered unfair treatment, so they suspected the cause of death wasn't an accident. They wanted the truth and justice. Mu Xuan's gaze darted around evasively, not daring to look directly at the parents on TV. The hands resting on his knees were tightly clasped and rubbing together, his complexion unnaturally pale. I noticed his expression change when he saw the news, looking quite bizarre. Thinking of his relationship with Jiang Yan, a thought stirred in my heart, and I blurted out, "What are you panicking so much for? Do you know the deceased, or have you done something shameful?" Mu Xuan looked as if he'd been startled, suddenly raising his head to glare at me, retorting in a sharp voice, "Xiaochen, what are you talking about? No matter how dissatisfied you are with me, You can't just go around saying things like that. Peishuro was stunned for a moment, then startled by the sharp tone. Mushwan, do you know this poor girl? Could she be someone from one of your classmates' families? That wasn't entirely impossible either. The school Mushwan attended was a private high school with exorbitant tuition, and every year the school recruited outstanding students. These types generally had ordinary family backgrounds, unable to afford tuition but excelling in grades. Perhaps she was some classmate's relative. Mushwan's complexion shifted slightly again. If you've got nothing to hide, why can't it be talked about? You and that Mr. Jiang are both acting super weird. Whenever this matter is brought up, you dodge and look guilty, almost as if you've got "we're involved" written across your faces. The news is already out, and the matter has blown up. It'll be super easy to investigate and find out, so you might as well clear things up early and figure out a solution. Pei Shuero hadn't believed it at first, but seeing Mushwan's expression, her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Mushwan, Mom, I really didn't. Mushwan grew anxious. If Xiaochun isn't clear about what kind of person I am, could it be that even you, Mom, aren't clear either? I'm the son you raised for over a dozen years. Seeing him put on that grievance-filled look again, I almost rolled my eyes. Stop putting on an act. The thief shouting, "Stop thief," aren't you? Whatever you did, you're definitely connected to it. I want to see how long they can keep up the act. I got up and went upstairs. Mushwan's face cycled between red and pale, and furious beyond belief, he burst into tears. Mom, you saw it too. Ever since Xiaochun came back, I've yielded at every turn. I know I don't have the qualification to compete with him, nor should I compete with him. I also want to get along well with him and filialize toward you and Dad together. Yet he finds fault with me everywhere I turn. And whatever I do, he has something to say about it. Today, Jiang Yin left in a fit of rage, and I don't even know what on earth he actually did. Mom, tell me what I should do. Otherwise, maybe I should just move out, even though I'm not of age yet. I feel like I can support myself now. You raised me for so many years, which is already a massive grace to me. I can't ask for anything more. It was as if he wanted to vent all the terror, worry, grievance, and dissatisfaction in his heart, covering his face and crying sorrowfully. Peishuro felt heartache watching him. Both the palm and the back of the hand are made of flesh. Xiaochun was her biological child, so of course she doted on him. Yet Mushwan had been raised by her side for over a decade. Not biological, but treated just like one. She wasn't muddled enough to expect the two of them to truly live in perfect harmony. As long as they kept the peace, that was enough. Besides, Xiaochun had also said he didn't mind keeping Mushwan around. However, Xiaochun's mouth really was something else. He didn't know how to be tactful at all. He could get away with it at home where family could tolerate it. But what would he do out in the world? Thinking and thinking, her train of thought drifted off. Mushwan cried and poured out his grievances, but when he didn't hear any comfort, he choked back a sob, raised his gaze slightly to look, and became even more aggrieved with anger. Mom was actually zoning out at a time like this. This time, he was truly heartbroken. The moment I got back to my room, I casually waved my hand and set up a barrier. Come out. After a good while, a blurry figure trembled as it drifted out. The moment my gaze swept over, the figure instantly shrank back into the corner. To think she's a ghost, yet still this timid. No wonder she got bullied by a few punks. I deeply doubted whether someone this cowardly would become any better, even after turning into a ghost. What could she possibly accomplish? Could a ghost trigger opportunities? I expressed profound doubt. How did you find your way here? If you don't speak up, I'm throwing you out. Frightened, the figure hurriedly said, I'm Wenimo. A few days ago, something happened to me at the mall. At this, her voice grew downcast. It took her quite a few days to accept this reality. Unbelievable, yet impossible not to accept. The moment she fell down, she had already guessed she wouldn't survive. Even if she didn't die, she'd probably be severely disabled, and her family couldn't afford the medical expenses. So it might be better just to leave like that. For a moment, she didn't know whether to feel a grim sense of relief. So what? What do you want to do? Take revenge? When Yimo was stunned. Revenge? Can I still take revenge? If you weren't taking revenge, what did you come looking for me for? If you didn't want revenge, you wouldn't linger in the mortal realm. I can't let go of my mom and dad. Your mom and dad, I'm sure you've seen them. You were their only daughter. And now that you're just gone like this, they're not going to let it rest. They have that do-or-die look in their eyes. When Yimo was silent for a long time, before murmuring, "They can't win against those people." Listening closely, her voice was still trembling slightly. I seemed to understand a little. It wasn't that she didn't hate or didn't want revenge, but rather that she had been bullied for too long, leaving an imprint etched deep into her soul. Even after becoming a ghost, she was still afraid of people. This indirectly reflected the deep oppression she had suffered from those punks. "Can you help me? I know you're different. You can definitely help me, right?" She suddenly raised her head and looked at me pleadingly. She didn't know what kind of person the boy in front of her was, or why he could see her. Since he could see her and wasn't scared at all, he must be special. She felt some mysterious guidance pulling her here. So he must be able to help, right? I smiled faintly. "How do you want me to help you?" This question completely stumped her. How should the matter even be handled? She didn't even have an idea of her own, so how could she ask others? Didn't she hate it herself? Of course she hated it. She didn't fall from that building by accident. It was a covered-up dispute. When the accident happened, alongside terror and despair, there was also deep resentment. Why treat her like this? She must have couldn't stand those punks bullying people. So she stepped forward to stop and scold them. Why did she end up with such a tragic end? She worked at a bubble tea shop, and several punks often came by to get drinks, later causing a ruckus inside the store. When she tried to dissuade them, she was cursed at and threatened. Really angered to the extreme, she purposely bluffed that she had recorded it and would expose them online. Only then did those few remember themselves and stop bullying people. She thought it was just a small episode in life, never imagining she had provoked demons. From then on, the retaliation began, intentionally isolating and ostracizing her at school, teaming up with others to spread rumors and slander to humiliate her. When she wanted to resign, they threatened the boss, tracked down her address, and alarmed her parents. They stuffed her desk full of trash and intentionally destroyed her study materials. Such tactics were endless. She thought that if she just endured until they got tired of it, it would be fine, never expecting it would ultimately cost her life. Afterwards, it was just brushed off as an accidental fall, with the truth concealed and ignored. Recalling all this, her resentment surged fiercely. The air in the room fluttered, the curtains stirred, and the tassels of the lampshade swayed. With a rustle, "I want them to taste this feeling," she said. "I want them to receive the retribution they deserve." I rested my chin in my hand. The retribution they deserve? Send them to prison? That's not actually difficult. When Yimo's inner resentment was ignited, shedding her timidity to turn cold and gloomy, her features twisting slightly. Prison? Her family won't let them go to prison. Even if they go, it won't be for very long. I traded my single life for a few years of prison time. Is my life really that cheap? She refuses to accept that. How about a life for a life? I said it as lightly as a feather, as if it were the simplest thing in the world, causing Yimo to freeze for a moment, her surging resentment pausing. "If it could be like this, of course that would be best. But can you actually do it?" she asked cautiously. "If it can be like this, of course that would be best. By what right is her life gone while others get to live on as if nothing happened? Did she die in vain just like that? Legal justice might not necessarily offset anything." I smiled faintly. "Of course I can." Surprise burst forth in Yimo's eyes. "Can you really help me get revenge? If I help you get revenge, can you leave in peace?" She nodded, then paused, her face filled with desolation and sadness. "I can let go of my resentment, but I can't let go of my parents. They only have me as a child." I thought for a moment and said, "Your parents aren't that old yet. Perhaps they can have another child." Never expecting to hear such words, she thought of her parents' age and realized there was indeed a possibility of them having another. If it were like this, she could finally rest easy. "Then when will you help me get my revenge? What price do I need to pay?" My gaze flickered, and with a meaningful smile I said, "Don't worry. I certainly won't help you for free, but I won't ask for something you can't bear either. Let's talk about the reward after the matter is over. I'm not an ordinary person, so naturally what I want isn't ordinary stuff." When Yimo nodded without a moment's hesitation, "Then just wait a bit. This requires the right timing." She nodded, then remembering something, she asked nervously, "Can you help me protect Mom and Dad? I'm a person from the underworld, not a fairy from heaven. I manage the affairs of the dead, not the living." Seeing me remain silent, her eye sockets turned red. "If it won't work, then forget it." Seeing her pitiful appearance, I said, "Rest assured, your parents shouldn't have any issues. The matter has blown up quite a bit now. So if anything happens to them at this time, it'll become uncontrollable. Mom, I'm heading out. I said to Pei Shuuro. Pei Shuuro was stunned. Heading out? Where are you going? Let me have the driver take you. No need. I'll take public transit myself. It's hard to get things done with a driver following along. But Xiaoqin just came back and hasn't gone out alone yet. He isn't familiar with the city either. What if he goes out by himself and gets lost? I saw her worry. Mom, it's fine, I know the way. Besides, when taking a cab, you just state the address directly. There's nothing to fear. Even so, no, there are a lot of bad people outside right now. How about this? I'll have your fourth sister go out with you. You can handle whatever business you have. And you can also have your fourth sister run errands for you. She immediately told someone to wake up Muyawai, who was still lazing in bed. As soon as Muyawai heard her mother's words, she flew into a rage. Mom, I'm his sister, not his little lackey. If you're worried about him, just have the driver follow him. Why do you have to make me go out with him? I'm not doing it, she yelled and even glared at me. I gave her a side eye, my expression utterly disgusted. You think I'm thrilled to have you tag along? It's Mom who's worried and insists you come. Mom, look at him. Muyawai angrily reached out and pointed at me. Pei Shuuro slapped her hand down. Like it or not, you're going. You said it yourself, he's Xiaoqin, an older sister accompanying her younger brother out to handle a few things. Why do you have so many opinions? What are you trying to do? Pei Shuuro sank her face, gazing at him with a stern look. Muyawai was startled back by that gaze, and her arrogance instantly shrank. The matter is settled just like this. Hurry up and eat breakfast. Xiaoqin is about to head out. Fighting back her tears and grievances, she went to clear the table. Where on earth are you going? Muyawai asked with a dark face inside the car. Since there was free manual labor, she might as well use it. Free labor was free labor. I instructed with a clear conscience, drive forward, and I'll give you directions. I was thoroughly treating her like a chauffeur. Muyawai was furious beyond belief, yet she had no way out of it. She drove around everywhere following my guidance, the area growing increasingly unfamiliar, and the roads growing narrower and narrower. Even she herself was dumbfounded. Having lived in Heir for so many years, she had never known Heir had a place like this. Muyawai obediently parked the car outside a rundown residential complex, sitting in the driver's seat and peering outside, deep confusion welling up in her heart. All right, you wait for me here. I got out and slammed the car door shut, leaving behind a single sentence as I walked away, giving Muyawai zero opportunity to ask questions. She originally wanted to ask what on earth I was doing, but my attitude was truly infuriating. In a fit of anger, she simply decided to wash her hands of it and not care. I smoothly entered the residential complex, my footsteps never pausing, as I walked straight toward one of the buildings. The landscaping in the old complex was terrible. The exterior walls mottled and scarred, and there wasn't even an elevator. The stairs also showed signs of heavy disrepair. I walked all the way up to the fourth floor, then turned my steps to head left. As I reached the fourth floor, I faintly heard the sound of crying. If I guessed right, it was coming from the one family, standing at the entrance of one home. I reached out and knocked on the door. I needed to find an assistant as soon as possible. With me being a dignified young master, how had I been reduced to running errands myself? This didn't match my status as a young master at all. The sound inside the house paused, and then footsteps rang out. Soon, an inquiry came from behind the door. Who is it? I'm a friend of Wenimo. The house fell silent for a moment, before the door was opened a crack. Someone peered at me through the gap in the door, and seeing that I was so young, they relaxed slightly. Are you Xiaoma's co-worker? I nodded. Only then did the person inside open the door to let me in. After entering, I didn't waste any breath. I knew that when Yimo had been murdered, when Yimo's parents weren't that old, but after their daughter's accident, they had aged rapidly. Originally, they had a full head of dark hair, but now it was interspersed with many silver strands, and the wrinkles on their faces had also deepened considerably. Their eyes were filled with sorrow and pain, along with a suppressed hatred. How do you know? How do you know Xiaoma was murdered? Do you know something? Hurry up and tell us. Wen's mother, whose spirits had previously been low and sensitive, instantly grew agitated upon hearing my words, and grabbed hold of my hand. I can see Wen Yimo, and I can even help you guys. Wen's father and mother froze, not understanding the meaning behind my words. Their daughter had already passed away. What on earth did he mean by saying he could see their daughter? Although, in order to find the truth, they stubbornly refused to cremate her and kept their daughter in the morgue. This young man couldn't possibly be running around the morgue, right? An absurd thought popped up in the couple's hearts. I can see your daughter's soul, and I can help you fulfill your wish. I said, speaking up. Wen's mother's weeping cut off abruptly. Mother, when sobbing, paused abruptly, looking at me through her tears, her expression somewhat dazed. Of course, their wish was to drag out the person who caused their daughter's death, the culprit, and make them face the punishment they deserved. Yet was this even enough? If it was just serving a few years in a major prison, that was far, far from enough. A few years in prison. How could that ever compare to their Xiaoma's single life? Whoever harmed Xiaoma should pay a painful price. Intense hatred surged in the depths of Wen's mother's eyes. Whatever you guys want, I can help you accomplish it. However, you'll need to pay a small price in return. I made my words very clear. Aside from karmic virtue, I also needed to collect the pinnacle of human emotion and sincerity, the ultimate truth and kindness, the greatest of humanity and uniqueness. The gate of rebirth was the gateway leading to new life. Life meant a beginning, meaning hope and joy, while death meant an ending, meaning despair and sorrow. Yet life and death formed a cycle, and between the cycles existed countless selfishness and greed, hypocrisy and malice. I needed to collect these to purify the resentment, keeping the resentment within a balanced range. After listening to my words, Wen's mother hesitated not at all. No matter what you want, as long as you can really help us, I'm willing to give you anything. Even if you want my life, that's fine. I smiled and said, it's not that serious. I told the two of them everything I had learned from Wenimo, without hiding the slightest detail. Hearing this, the couple once again broke down in bitter tears. Seeing this, I could only let out a slight sigh. Parting in life and death truly was the hardest thing to accept in the mortal world. Weeping, Wen's mother suddenly knelt on the ground and slammed her head down in a heavy kowtow. I want them to pay the price. I want them to live out the rest of their lives in regret, alongside their extreme hatred. Wen's mother and father were also consumed by intense guilt and regret. Why hadn't they discovered their daughter's plight sooner? If they had known about their daughter's predicament earlier, they definitely would have helped her quit her job. They could have taken her and moved to a different place. Wen's father tried his utmost to restrain himself, yet his face was still streaming with tears, one hand tightly covering his face to block the grief and regret written across it. Me too. I want them to pay the price they deserve. I told Wen's father and mother to wait for my news and then walked out of the building. Peeking through the car window, I saw Muyawai had fallen asleep, her mouth still half open. Seeing how deeply asleep she was, the corners of my mouth twitched, and she called herself my sister? If she were my younger sister, I'd find her an embarrassment. I originally wanted to knock on the car window to wake her up, but stopped midway. I was just fretting over how to ditch Muyawai anyway, as dragging her along all the time was inconvenient. Since she was asleep, I might as well just let her stay that way. Thus, I changed my direction and walked off. Muyawai was still sound asleep inside the car. The wishes of Wenyimo's parents weren't hard to fulfill. With my abilities, I could certainly give those people a profound lesson, without anyone noticing. Yet that didn't align with what was truly in their hearts. So the truth still needed to be exposed first. Recalling what Wenyimo had suffered, even I couldn't help but sigh. If this matter didn't have a good outcome, who would ever dare do a good deed in the future? Morals really were declining day by day. Society was developing at breakneck speed, yet human nature hadn't improved alongside the economy, growing increasingly selfish instead. Perhaps this material-obsessed society had stimulated the ugliest side of human nature. I thought of my past self, back when I was as old as those kids. I was already a towering, stand-up young man, capable of starting a family and establishing a career, able to hold down a household. My expression froze slightly, a flash of confusion crossing my face. How long had it been since I last thought about my past? It had been far too long. I had already forgotten it. I wasn't a young master right from the start either. I vaguely remembered that before becoming a young master, I too was just an ordinary person in the mortal world. I'm just an ordinary person in the mortal world too. And after dying, entered the city of the dead king. It was far too long ago, and I've already forgotten how I originally became the young master of this city of a dead king. My thoughts flashed past, and my figure gradually faded away. Passers-by on the street kept unruffled expressions, everyone hurrying along with a sense of purpose, and not a single person noticed that the young boy beside them had suddenly vanished out of thin air. I thought I would finish my business quickly, yet I never expected it to drag on until very late. Once I got busy, I completely forgot about manhwa, and after finishing up, I headed straight back. As soon as I stepped inside, I sensed the atmosphere in the living room was off, feeling extremely solemn. Before I could even speak, I was pulled into an embrace by Heir, her voice filled with worry. "You're finally back. You scared Mom to death. Mom thought something had happened to you." Mu's father also wore an anxious look, visibly letting out a breath of relief upon seeing me, repeatedly saying that as long as I was back, it was fine. He had really been scared to death, thinking his son had sneaked off on his own. I blinked my eyes, a beat behind as I remembered something. Just as I was about to open my mouth to explain, manhwa, who had been lectured for an entire evening and spent the whole day anxious, roared angrily at me. "Mukin, are you out of your mind? If you're going somewhere, can't you at least give a heads up? Do you have any idea how much we thought something happened to you? Do you know we spent the whole day looking for you?" I shrunk my shoulders slightly under her fierce glare, truly feeling a bit guilty. "Zip it, Pei," Shiro said as she pulled me into her arms, turning back to glare fiercely at her fourth daughter. "It must be because you made Xiaochen unhappy, that he left without saying a word. You always like to target Xiaochen. How many times have I told you? Xiaochen is your own younger brother." Younger brother, gasped by her mother's unreasonable words. manhwa felt so angry she thought she might ascend to heaven right then. "Mom, will you please use some logic? I literally didn't do anything today," manhwa shouted loudly, seeing that the two of them were about to start bickering. I quickly intervened. "Mom, don't be angry. Listen to my explanation. Today really wasn't fourth sister's fault. She genuinely didn't do anything, and we didn't even argue. Then why did you ditch her and leave by yourself? You haven't been here very long yet, and you're still not familiar enough with the city. It's easy to get lost when nobody is following along with you. The main thing is that Xiaochen doesn't really know how to use a smartphone either. If he gets lost, he doesn't even know how to use GPS navigation." I answered honestly. I went to handle some business and told fourth sister to wait for me in the car. When I finished my business and came back, I saw she had fallen asleep. So I figured she might not have got enough sleep because she woke up too early and decided to let her sleep a little longer. With an explanation like that, you might as well not have spoken. Was he doing it on purpose? Not caring about her fierce glare in the slightest. I continued honestly, then I just left. I thought I'd finish my business and be back quickly. She might not even have woken up by the time I returned. I just didn't expect things to exceed the budget of time and drag on until now. I didn't actually want manhwa to get scolded, and I certainly didn't expect things to develop this way. "Then why didn't you answer your phone the whole time?" manhwa continued to demand. I reached into my cloth bag, pulled out a smartphone, looked at it from side to side, and put on a bewildered expression. I didn't hear the phone ring. This phone was even custom-made for me by Heir, and she had specifically nagged me before I went out today, but I really hadn't heard any sound. manhwa snatched the phone right out of my hand, lit up the screen, and instantly laughed out of sheer anger, thrusting the phone right in front of my face. "Can't you even look at this? Your phone was set to silent." I glanced at the phone and blinked innocently. I really didn't know how to look at that. I've never used a smartphone before. So how was I supposed to know phones could be set to make no sound? manhwa still wanted to press the issue. Heir curled her finger and knocked him hard on the head, causing him to clutch his forehead and cry out in pain. "If you hadn't fallen asleep in the car, would he have been considerate enough not to wake you up and gone off to handle business by himself? So at the end of the day, it's all your fault. I had you go help out, and look at you, falling asleep so soundly in the car. Your allowance for this month is deducted." Heir directly announced. "What? Deduct my allowance? The month has only been passed for 3 days." After finishing, Heir looked at the rest of the children and issued a warning to them. "Whoever dares to secretly fund him will have their allowance deducted next month." As for Mu Wanting, she cast a stern look at her eldest daughter. "If you dare give Yue any money, I'll immediately arrange blind dates for you." Mu Wanting's expression changed instantly, and she quickly straightened up to reply, "Mom, don't you worry. I won't do it. I'll even keep an eye on the others, to make sure they don't fund fourth sister either." Eldest sister, manhwa wailed. Helpless, Mu Wanting gave her a quick, apologetic look. "Fourth sister, don't blame eldest sister for being ruthless, all right? When disaster strikes, every man is for himself. Fourth sister, where did you and Xiaoqing go today?" Downstairs, Muxuan didn't dare to go against Pei Shuero. After returning to their respective rooms, he secretly sneaked out to find Muyawai. After comforting her for a bit, he curiously and boldly asked about me. The mere mention of me filled Muyawai with a bellyful of fire. This biological younger brother of hers was simply sent to torment her and collect a debt. Yet facing Muxuan, she still reined in her temper and recounted what happened. As for where I went afterwards and what I did, she had no clue. Hearing this, Muxuan furrowed his brows. Forget about Muyawai. He didn't know what kind of place that was either. People like them typically only frequented high-end establishments. So of course they wouldn't go to run-down places like that, let alone bother to understand them. He knitted his brows in thought for a moment, and failing to figure anything out, he simply let it go. After returning to his room, for some reason, he just couldn't let the matter go. Coincidentally, Jiang Yin called to chat for a bit, and remembering that his close friend had been to his house earlier, he couldn't help muttering a few words to him. To his surprise, upon hearing this, Jiang Yin let out a startled shriek. Did he go to Yimo's house? When Yimo dropped, even Muxuan couldn't help but lose his focus for a second, his grip tightening around the phone. What would he go to Yimo's house for? He doesn't even know Yimo. Jiang Yin gritted his teeth, having no choice but to recount what happened to him that day. Hearing this, Muxuan drew in a sharp breath, his limbs turning somewhat weak. He hadn't expected Jiang Yin to actually be present that day. Ian, did you? Muxuan felt his throat tighten slightly. After asking that question, his heart leaped right in his throat, and his brain began racing. If he really got tangled up in this matter, what should he do? Although he wasn't at the scene that day, now those bullying incidents had already been blown wide open by her parents. If an investigation were launched, yet very quickly he calmed himself down again, constantly reassuring himself in his heart. He had never bullied Yimo directly. At most, Muxuan flew in emotion, hurriedly recalling all the things he had done, to see if he had left any obvious flaws, or any evidence that could be seized by others. Ashwan, are you listening to me? Jiang Yin spoke for a long time without hearing any response, and called out with a strange tone. Muxuan snapped back to his senses, smoothed over his emotions, and said, I'm listening, Ian. What do you plan to do about this? Yimo's parents don't seem like they plan to let it go. If they, Jiang Yin abruptly cut him off. It'll be fine, whether it's the school or our parents. None of them want to blow this up. In the end, at worst, they'll just drag a few scapegoats out to offer a proper apology. Apologize to them, and then pay a bit of money as compensation. Come to think of it, those college students did all of that. None of us actually did anything, let alone their respective parents. Even the school cared about its reputation. Muxuan merely knitted his brows together, somehow feeling that things weren't that simple. As for the mall's surveillance footage, Jiang Yin wasn't worried at all. He had already had people clear it out long ago, so no one could possibly investigate it. His dad had good relationships with everyone at the mall, so wiping the surveillance was just a matter of a single phone call. Even without that connection, he believed nobody would dare offend their Jiang family anyway. Right now, I'm just worried that Mukin knows something. That day, I panicked and bumped into him in the hallway, and the way he looked at me, plus the things he said. When he invited me to your house that day, it was like he had already made up his mind about something. This was the exact reason Jiang Yin had been feeling unsettled the entire time. Even when facing Muxuan, Jiang Yin didn't dare to say too much. Hearing Jiang Yin put it that way, Muxuan couldn't help but recall those words I had said to him when he saw the news that day, and his handsome face instantly drained of color. Did I really see who did those bad things? Even if I didn't see clearly who it was, I definitely saw them bullying someone. If he blabs about this, just thinking about the consequences, Muxuan couldn't sit still anymore. He forced himself to calm down. Ian, Mukin really might have seen something. That day, he even asked me if I was involved in this whole business with Yimo, though it seemed like he hadn't mentioned it to my mom and dad. You better hurry and find a way to tell the others, so they can pray for their own luck. Muxuan's words threw Jiang Yin into an even greater panic, and he hurriedly ended the call with him, turning right around to call their usual gang of buddies. Muxuan bit down hard on his teeth, thinking back to what happened before, and couldn't help feeling a tinge of regret. If Yimo wanted to help that pitiful wretch, so be it. You could help them for a lifetime, but not forever. Why do they have to keep picking a fight with him? At the time, he just felt that posture, and that look were far too glaringly offensive, acting as if he were some champion of justice. And they were demons. That was why he dropped a few words to egg his classmates on. Originally, he just wanted to teach him a lesson, so he wouldn't go meddling in other people's business in the future. But he genuinely never expected things to develop to the point they had today. As he thought about it, he quietly started blaming those guys again. Letting them have a tiny bit of payback was fine, but those idiots, they actually got hooked on it and kept hounding Wenimo without letting go. Wasn't that just picking the softest persimmon to squeeze? Well, now look, they squeezed the persimmon until it burst. And then there was Wenimo. If he hadn't said back then that he recorded it and wanted to expose them, he wouldn't have momentarily. Mushwan pondered my situation, figuring that while I might have seen what happened at the mall, there was no way I knew the whole story from start to finish. I didn't even know how to use a smartphone. What kind of ideas could I possibly come up with? Life was beautiful, but reality was cruel. On the third day, the internet was flooded with news everywhere. And what threw him into an even wilder panic was that those surveillance recordings that had supposedly been deleted long ago were actually exposed by someone all at once. Even the surveillance footage of people teasing and humiliating Wenimo in the past had been dug up. When he went downstairs, he saw me sitting on the sofa, just as expected, staring intently at the television. And what the news was talking about was precisely this matter. Seeing the familiar scenes playing on screen, he almost failed to catch his breath, his legs turning weak, just as Mushwan's heart was filled with terror and anxiety. Pei Shuuro walked over, seeing him leaning against the banister with a pale face. His expression somewhat off, she asked Dashwan, "What's wrong with you? Why does your complexion look a bit pale? Are you sick?" Her voice startled me. I turned my head to look over, locking eyes with Mushwan's panicked gaze. Thinking of something, I smiled with deep meaning. "Mom is talking to you." Mushwan's lips trembled slightly. "Mom, I'm Fina." Pei Shuuro gave him a weird look, and seeing the news I was watching, asked out of concern, "Xiaochen, you seem very focused on this news. Why is that?" I answered with total, blunt honesty. "You and Dad aren't planning on having me study here? Then I definitely need to understand more about the people and things related to this school." Pei Shuuro was shaken to her core, and only then did a problem suddenly hit her. That's right. The students of this school could pull off something like this, and even dare to bully outsiders. What about the students inside the school? If Xiaochen went to study at a school like this, what if Pei Shuuro didn't even dare to think further? Disregarding Mu's father stepping out, she immediately rushed to make a phone call. "No, you can't go to this school to study. And Ashwan, you need to transfer schools too. Studying at a school like this, there's no guarantee of safety at all. What's the point of even studying? I'm getting you guys a different school." Mushwan froze. How did it suddenly turn into changing schools? He had never even thought about changing schools. He was already familiar with his current school, and all his friends and social circles were here. To suddenly switch, and right in the middle of their senior year of high school. If they changed schools at a time like this, were they even going to take the college entrance exams? Mushwan wanted to open his mouth to say something, but he also knew there was a high probability he couldn't talk his mother out of it. Thus, he cast his gaze toward me, hoping I would chime in and persuade her. As for which school I studied at, I didn't care at all. Therefore, I didn't even spare him a glance from the corner of my eye. Mushwan could only watch with puppy dog eyes as his mother made the phone call. After the video of the Wenimo incident blew up online, all parties handled the fallout with submissive haste. The school came forward with an apology at the very first moment, promising to step up students' moral education. The milk tea shop owner also wept tears of snot and sorrow, and most of the students involved stepped forward to apologize, facing the cameras with tears and snot streaming down their faces, putting on a thoroughly remorseful appearance. In my room, Wenimo gritted her teeth as she stared at the people apologizing in the video. They aren't being sincere at all. They don't think they did anything wrong. I nodded slightly. Yeah, most people aren't truly admitting their faults, let alone feeling any remorse. If this matter hadn't been exposed, and people online hadn't reacted so violently, hounding them for an explanation and condemning them, with public opinion kicking up such a massive fuss, neither they nor their parents would have apologized, let alone taken this matter to heart. Show remorse toward an ordinary person who's already dead? She's already dead. What else is there to talk about? Others couldn't see it, but I could. While they spoke with surface remorse and sincerity, the depths of their eyes revealed nonchalance, or even annoyance and resentment. Naturally, they resented the people forcing their hands. How humiliating was this for them? In their eyes, when Yimo's life wasn't worth as much as their own faces. Before her death, when Yimo was filled with grief and indignation, along with a profound sense of confusion and incomprehension. She genuinely couldn't understand what she had done wrong. Was she wrong to be kind and righteous? She had merely wanted to help out of kindness. Yet in return, she faced their unprovoked ostracism. Those people threw their family status around to apply pressure, destroying her peaceful life. That day, when the dispute broke out in the mall, she accidentally fell from the upper floor. With a loud thud, everything came to an end. Now they said they knew they were wrong, begging everyone to give them a chance. Who was going to give her a chance? They hadn't given her a chance back then. The more she thought about it, the more when Yimo's suppressed resentment tended to spiral out of control. The temperature in the room instantly dropped quite a bit, ghostly winds howling around and blowing objects into a chaotic sway. I looked up at the swaying chandelier and quickly spoke out to soothe her emotions. I'll let you go exact your own payback in person. As if hit by a pause button, the commotion in the room stopped immediately. Let me go vent my anger in person. No, I can't get close to them. When Yimo frowned, of course, she wanted to take revenge herself. But for some reason, she couldn't get close to them, able only to watch from afar. The moment she got too close, she'd be blocked off. Otherwise, she would have torn them apart long ago. Just because you have no way doesn't mean I don't have a way. They did foul deeds. So ghosts knocking on their door in the middle of the night shouldn't come as a surprise. I stated with a calm expression, perhaps truly feeling guilty as thieves. After when Yimo died, quite a few of them were indeed terrified. So they started carrying protective talismans, especially the person directly responsible for causing her to fall from the building. Though they quickly brushed it off and stopped taking it seriously, they were still harboring some lingering guilt deep down, wearing blessed jade pendants on their bodies. When Yimo's personality during her lifetime was gentle, so it was impossible for her to instantly turn into a fierce, vengeful ghost after dying, meaning it wasn't anything strange that she couldn't approach those few people. However, these tricks were useless against me. When Yimo instantly restored to full health. If you can, of course that's for the best. However, there's one thing you must remember. You cannot directly harm anyone's life. Sometimes death isn't revenge, but rather a form of release. If you shoulder a human life, you won't be able to smoothly reincarnate and be reborn. I instructed with utmost solemnity. When Yimo was a kind person, and during her lifetime, she also loved helping others. Yet she unfortunately met with a tragic accident. If not for this accident, she would have had a great next life. But if she accumulated karmic retribution from killing, then the situation would be completely different. There was no need to ruin her own happy next life for the sake of these wicked people. When Yimo bit her lip, feeling somewhat unwilling, after a moment, she nodded. All right, I won't take their lives. I want them to live in the shadows. I flicked out a glowing talisman, and the talisman slowly landed on Wen Yimo, vanishing shortly after. Before Wen Yimo even had time to react, she felt something being injected into her soul, as if she were instantly filled with power. Go on. Haste makes waste. Take your time. If there's anything you can't resolve, just call out my name, and I'll come save you. When Yimo looked at me with deep emotion, her eyes instantly welling up with tears, there were many bad people in this world who saw that she was easy to bully and unprotestingly applied pressure on her. Yet there were also many good people, just like the people online speaking up for her, just like me, unrelated and unacquainted, yet still willing to spare no effort to help her. Since I said she could go vent, Wen Yimo didn't want to stay a single second longer and quickly vanished from my room. From the time she fell from the building to when the matter was exposed, it had only been a mere few days. At first, those people were indeed quite panicked, seeing as it had resulted in a human life, after all. But this panic quickly faded away, turning back into nonchalance. People born into wealth and nobility, living in the environments they did since childhood, and receiving the education they did, very easily developed a flawed perception, feeling that they were a cut above the rest, while ordinary people were naturally lower class, and that there was nothing money couldn't solve. And whatever money couldn't solve, power could. Jiang Yin wasn't the person who caused the fall, but that day at the mall, he too participated in the ostracism against Wen Yimo. Jiang Yin hadn't had an easy time these past few days. He had just learned the news from Mu Xuan's mouth, and hadn't even had time to do anything, before things spiraled completely out of control. Only then did he tell his parents about the matter, and naturally he got heavily chewed out for it. Yet his heart settled down again all the same. Although his mom and dad scolded him, they definitely wouldn't just leave him hanging. Using the Jiang family's influence to pluck him out of this mess was as easy as pie. Therefore, Jiang Yin wasn't worried right now, even thinking that the worst-case scenario was just transferring schools. There were still plenty of good schools in Heir, so he definitely wasn't afraid of running out of options. He sat on the bed, leaning against the headboard while intently watching a variety show on his phone, bursting into loud laughter from time to time, showing absolutely no sign of being affected by the incident. When Yimo drifted into his room, and this was the exact scene she laid eyes on, the anger in her heart surged straight to the crown of her head. Look at that. These people didn't have the slightest shred of remorse at all, and they would never turn over a new leaf. To people whose family background fell short of theirs, they were considered even lower than cats and dogs in their eyes. With Wen Yimo's fury and resentment skyrocketing, the crystal chandelier in Jiang Yan's room immediately began to sway, flickering a few times as well, and emitting a few static buzzing sounds, as if the chandelier had malfunctioned. Jiang Yin was startled by the sudden change, and looking up at the ceiling fixture, he couldn't help muttering under his breath, "What's going on? Is the light broken?" He stared at it for a moment, and seeing the chandelier return to normal, he didn't pay it any more mind. Yet the moment he shifted his attention back to his phone, the room's lights began to flicker again, faintly accompanied by the buzzing sound of electric current. Still not thinking much of it, he curled his lip and got out of bed to hit the light switch. Trying it out like this, however, broke him out in a cold sweat. The switch had completely lost its function. He hadn't turned them off, yet the lights went out by themselves. He hadn't turned them on, yet they turned back on by themselves. Moreover, even though his windows were clearly shut tight, the room felt as though a gust of wind had blown inside, and he even felt a creeping chill. For some reason, the thought of Wen Yimo suddenly popped into his mind, and his complexion instantly changed as an instinctive reflex. He turned around, wanted to open the door and get out, but no matter how hard he yanked and forced it, the door that was perfectly fine before simply wouldn't budge. "Open the door! Open the door! Someone come quick! Save me! Someone come!" Jiang Yin could no longer suppress his inner terror, and he burst out screaming at the top of his lungs. His screams were truly too bone-chilling, and, coupled with the dead of night, it sent the hearts of everyone else in the Jiang family villa racing with a violent spike of adrenaline, causing them to rush toward his room in a panic. Jiang Fu banged heavily on the door from outside. "Jiang Yin, what happened? Open the door. What are you doing in there? It won't open. There's a ghost. Hurry up and save me," Jiang Yin cried out in a trembling voice, frantically pounding against the door. The terror in his voice pierced right through the wooden door, clearly transmitting to the people outside. "Stop acting up in there, brat. Calm down. Or there be ghosts in this world. Stop scaring yourself. Is the door lock stuck? Calm down first and check. Dad's having someone look for the key." As Jiang Fu spoke, he exchanged glances with Jiang Mu, both of them inevitably thinking of the recent events. Jiang Fu's expression looked rather unpleasant. He was both angry and heartbroken over his son. The brat probably had a guilty conscience, so he was just scaring himself. Fortunately, the Jiang family lived in a standalone villa, but the houses weren't built very close together either. Otherwise, with him screaming like this, the entire villa neighborhood would have heard him. A servant quickly brought the keys over, yet no matter how the key was turned, the lock wouldn't open. Inside the room, Jiang Yan's shrieks continued nonstop, accompanied by a series of clashing sounds, resembling lighting fixtures being smashed to pieces. Following one final loud crash, the stubborn door that refused to open finally swung open. The Jiang family members hurriedly pushed the door open and stepped inside, and what greeted their eyes was absolute chaos. Inside the originally luxuriously decorated room, ornaments were knocked askew. The bedside lamp's shade hung crookedly. The drooping curtains were left in a complete mess. The crystal chandelier from the ceiling had crashed down, with shards scattered everywhere, and even a corner of the rug was rolled up. The Jiang family members were all dumbfounded. Looking closer still, Jiang Yin was lying flat behind the door, completely passed out. His forehead was still breaking out in cold sweat. Everyone pitched in to carry him away, and then hurriedly called for a doctor. After examining him, the doctor looked very strange. Young Master Jiang seems to have suffered extreme terror. Did he experience something terrifying? The expressions of the Jiang family members all turned awkward. Jiang Fu forced an awkward twitch of his lips and said, "To be honest, we aren't very clear about it either. The child was in his own room, and we thought he was already asleep. Who would have known that upon hearing his screams and rushing over, we'd find that he had already passed out? What else could they possibly say? Tell them their son did something shameful, scared himself, and claimed he saw a ghost? That would be shameless." The Jiang family still cared about their dignity. The doctor didn't think too much of it. Physically, he doesn't have any major issues, though the injury on his forehead is a bit serious. I'm afraid it might leave a scar in the future. Hearing this, the Jiang family members' expressions instantly aged. After the doctor left, Jiang Yin quickly woke up. However, he was clearly shaken up pretty badly, and before he had even fully regained consciousness, he plunged right back into a terrifying nightmare. "Don't come near. It wasn't me. I didn't harm you. I didn't push you down the stairs. Go away. Don't come looking for me." His eyes were still tightly shut, while his hands thrashed and struggled nonstop, his face a picture of terror and utter dread. Hearing clearly what he was saying, Jiang Mu's expression shifted. "Jiang Yin, wake up. It's okay. You're just having a nightmare. Wake up." He hurriedly reached out to pat his son's face, yet there was zero reaction at all. Finally, he ruthlessly delivered a slap, which finally managed to rouse the person awake. Jiang Yin opened his eyes, and upon seeing his mother, he let out a loud wail, instantly throwing himself into Jiang Mu's embrace, clutching the clothes on his body tightly, while shivering all over. "Mom, there's a ghost. I saw one Yimo. She came back to settle scores with me. She said I ruined her and told me to pay with my life. I said I didn't. She didn't believe me. She's going to choke me to death." He had never believed ghosts truly existed in this world, but having clearly witnessed what happened in that room, there was simply no way to explain it with common sense. Besides, he really had seen her. She was wearing that exact outfit from that day. It really was when Yimo's ghost. "Jiang Yin, you've lost your mind. Where on earth are there any ghosts in this world? You're just scaring yourself. Stop overthinking it. You don't need to worry about that matter. Nothing will happen. Our family can handle it. Nobody can hurt you. Be a good boy and stop overthinking. In a few days, this whole thing will blow over." Jiang Mu's expression was extremely unsightly, and inwardly he was feeling quite worried by what his son said. Yet he still hugged and embraced him to soothe him. Staying in his mother's arms gave him a sense of security, and his emotions gradually calmed down. To thoroughly convince him, Jiang Mu half coaxingly and half forcibly dragged him over to take a look. The servants had already cleaned up the room, so it wasn't as messy as before. "Look, the chandelier just wasn't installed properly and fell down. As for those things you mentioned, it's because you didn't close the window properly and left a gap. Did you not notice how strong the wind was today? When the wind blows in, of course it can toss things around. And you call yourself an educated student." Jiang Mu spoke to him in a scolding tone, reaching out to flick him on the forehead. There was not a single flaw on Jiang Mu's face, his expression as natural as could be, to the point that Jiang Yin even began to waver, suspecting whether he really had been overthinking things, and turned into a frightened bird, scaring himself for nothing. "Stop scaring yourself. Tonight, just go sleep in the guest room. Tomorrow we'll have someone come clean up the place. We won't install that crystal chandelier anymore. It's too dangerous." Hesitantly, Jiang Yin was led back to the guest room. "Jiang Yin, what kind of nonsense are you spouting? Did you watch too many horror movies and psych yourself into thinking they're ghosts?" Mushuan never expected his good friend to summon him over. He was actually talking about such an absurd thing, claiming he saw Wen Yimo's ghost. How could that possibly be? In just a single night, Jiang Yan's spirits had wilted, and he had even become somewhat jittery and neurotic. He glanced left and right in a panic, and lowering his voice with nervous tension, said, "No, Xiaoxian, it's true. Everything I'm saying is true. Last night, I really saw her ghost. She was right inside my room, and turned my whole place upside down. She said I harmed her. and came to settle scores with me. Later, after I fell asleep, my blanket suddenly started floating mid-air. I saw it with my own eyes. Jiang Yan's gaze was terrified and uneasy, and recounting last night's events made his scalp tingle. Last night, after being persuaded by his mother, he stayed in the guest room and remained quiet for a long time. So he finally fell asleep with peace of mind. Who would have known that as he slept, he felt cold, even though he was clearly covered in a thick down comforter, and the ambient temperature wasn't even low. Later, utterly unable to stand the cold, he woke up in a start, only to open his eyes and see the duvet covering his body, actually floating suspended in midair. He instinctively let out a shriek, yet this time no one came over. His screams seemed to be blocked off by something, and no matter how much he yelled, nobody came. Terrified, he shrank straight under the bed. Yet it was completely useless, when Yimo's voice even echoed in the room, sounding just like it came straight from hell. He had no idea how he managed to tough it out, with dark circles bruised under his eyes. Jiang Yan's gaze shifted erratically, wound up to an extreme state of tension, where even the slightest thought could frighten him out of his wits. Mushuan tightly furrowed his brows, feeling that what his friend was saying was impossible. Yet seeing his appearance, it didn't look like he was lying. For a moment, Mushuan couldn't make up his mind either. Just as he was hesitating, Jiang Yan stared at him with an eerie gaze, and spoke in a hollow, haunting voice. "When Yimo came to find me and won't let me off, that means she won't let you off either." Mushuan's heart gave a violent leap, and he rebuked him in a low, scolding tone. "Jiang Yan, have you lost your mind? There are no ghosts whatsoever in this world. Get a grip. Besides, her accident had nothing to do with you, and even less to do with me." Hearing this, Jiang Yan's expression dazed for a moment, and he muttered to himself, "Yeah, I wasn't the one who caused her to fall from the building, so why would she come looking for me? That day I just tossed out an idea, and didn't force her to do anything. If anyone's to blame, she can only blame her own clumsiness. She's already dead and gone. What's she coming back to scare me for?" As he thought and thought, a vicious surge of malice welled up in Jiang Yan. His neurotic eyes turned fierce, carrying a trace of resolute ruthlessness. "Fine, you want to haunt me as a ghost, huh? Then I'll go hire someone to deal with you. Scatter your soul so you can't even be a ghost anymore." After making up his mind in his heart, Jiang Yan couldn't sit still for even a single second, and dropping those words, he hurried off in a rush. Only, Jiang Yan's hopes were far too optimistic. The Jiang family simply didn't believe him at all, feeling that something had gone terribly wrong in his mind. Jiang Mu could only repeatedly urge and comfort him, while completely avoiding any mention of hiring someone to perform exorcism rituals. Although high society valued feng shui and would hire masters to help arrange auspicious layouts, that was purely for gathering wealth and heavenly fortune, while ghosts and ghouls were utter nonsense. Just as Jiang Yan grew increasingly anxious, yet another terrifying event occurred that completely shattered Jiang Yan's sanity, and even caused Mushuan to fall ill from fright. That day, the classmate who led the bullying suddenly fell gravely ill, and was rushed into the emergency room overnight. Though resuscitated, her psyche completely broke down, and all day long she curled up in her hospital bed, neurotically muttering the 3 words, "I was wrong." Her parents cried heartrendingly and insisted that someone had murdered their daughter, claiming it was done by Yimo's parents. Yet inspections and checks revealed this was utterly impossible. Yimo's parents lived far away from their family, a full hour's drive in a straight line, and moreover they had rock-solid alibis, having never once set foot in this place. Nor were there any traces of outsiders entering the house. An alarm system was completely intact. Yimo was just an ordinary working-class person. Yet her tragic death unexpectedly triggered a massive public outcry, making her one of the hottest trending topics. Because it touched upon the issue of the wealth gap, the topic's popularity skyrocketed even further. The parents of the wealthy students involved wanted to spend money to suppress it, but every time they paid to pull down the trending search, it would immediately rebound and climb even higher on the list. Even their personal info was exposed, frightening them so much that they could only give up and play dead. Therefore, even though several days had passed, people online were still constantly discussing this matter. Now that the involved classmate had died, the news spread instantly. Compared to the sympathy and pity shown toward Yimo, There was absolutely no goodwill left for that classmate. After all, people's eyes are discerning. This was completely getting what she deserved. She indirectly drove someone to their death, and now it was a life for a life. On what grounds should a simple apology let her off the hook? To be so cold-blooded at such a young age, when Yimo's spirit in heaven could finally rest in peace. When Yimo sobbed uncontrollably, while I sat quietly to the side, watching her cry, neither comforting her nor making a sound. Now that your wish has been fulfilled, it's time to set off. The person who caused your fall has been scared to death. When Yimo didn't actually take action herself, she was scared to death because of a guilty conscience. An upright person naturally has nothing to fear, while those with a guilty conscience see ghosts in everything. It's not good for when Yimo to linger in the mortal world for too long. She slowly stopped crying, raised her face, and looked at me quietly, asking softly with a pleading expression, "Can I go see my parents?" I looked at her and firmly refused. There's no need. Your parents have already made it through the hardest part. If you go see them now, it's equivalent to reopening their wounds and making them bleed fresh blood all over again. When Yimo was stunned for a moment and lowering her head, she realized that made sense too. However, I can let you send a dream. Go into their dreams and say goodbye to your parents. When Yimo was both happy and immensely grateful. Thank you. I stated bluntly, we're just taking what we each need. When Yimo knew, I helped her seek tentative revenge. Just as I said, it was taking what we each needed. I helped her punish the wicked and dissolve the immense resentment in her heart, while her parents wouldn't have to face the powerful and wealthy alone, risking retaliation at any moment, allowing her to leave in peace. When Yimo's father and mother slept soundly that night, this was the first time they had slept this peacefully ever since their daughter's accident. In their dream, they saw their own daughter, looking just as well-behaved as she did in life, with a bright smile, telling them she was going to leave, and asking them to take good care of themselves from now on. Finally, she even mentioned receiving help from an expert. For some reason, the couple instantly thought of that young man who claimed to be their daughter's friend. They eagerly questioned their daughter, but the daughter didn't say anything at all, only smiling and bidding a reluctant farewell, before finally vanishing into the dreamscape. As they slept, tears slipped from the corners of the couple's eyes, knowing that their daughter was truly gone this time. Perhaps there really was a wonderful afterlife, and their daughter would definitely have a good next life, growing up safe and sound, to make up for all the regrets of this lifetime. Although their daughter hadn't admitted it outright, they felt that the expert she spoke of must have been that young man who came to their house that day. That being said, he was definitely no ordinary person. As the couple woke up and thought about how to thank me, I suddenly appeared in their home once again. The moment the two of them saw me, they immediately moved to kneel, expressing endless gratitude for helping their daughter fulfill her wish. I reached out a hand to stop them. Do you still remember what I said? My helping you required compensation. Now is the time for me to collect that payment. Are you willing to give it? We're willing. We're completely willing. As long as it's something we have, we're willing to give it, the couple said with extreme sincerity. I saw kindness shining in their eyes, and giving a slight smile, I nodded. Now close your eyes and silently offer the greatest reward you can give me. The couple exchanged glances with one another, without a single question or hesitation. Slowly closing her own eyes, her heart filled with absolute serenity. In a short while, I watched as from the top of the two people's heads, a wisp of pure golden light slowly rose upward, revealing a satisfied smile on my face. This was the merit they had accumulated over time. The purer the light, the more sincere the gratitude it represented, and what they were willing to give was bound to be the greatest. This was also the ultimate reward I was looking for. I took out an exquisite good luck pouch, and with a gentle wave of my small hand, the two wisps of golden light burrowed into the pouch in my hand. After tying the drawstring, I said in a relaxed tone, "All right, I've already received the reward you gave. You are both kind and good people, because you possess a kind heart, doing good and accumulating merit." That was why when Yimo crossed paths with me, the couple were stunned for a moment. And when Mu couldn't help blurting out, "If that's the case, then why did our gaze to hear quietly?" When Yimo was fated to undergo a trial in life, although she passed away prematurely in this lifetime, because you two did good deeds and accumulated merit. Not only will she smoothly reincarnate and be reborn, But the family she enters next will be even better. She will also grow up safe and sound, just as you wished, get married and have children, and live a happy life until a peaceful end. Is this true? When Moo's eyes lit up slightly. Of course, I never lied. That's great, that's great. When Moo couldn't help choking up with sobs. Before leaving, I originally wanted to say something, but the words caught in my throat and I swallowed them back down, feeling it was unnecessary to make a redundant move. One Fu and when Moo had practiced kindness and accumulated merit for a long time. Having lost a dearly loved child, they would ultimately be blessed with another child. When Yimo's departure brought grief, it also signified another kind of new birth. Upon returning home, I happened to run into Dr. Song. Seeing the doctor, I raised an eyebrow. Mushwan had fallen ill, bedridden, and unable to get up. They had switched several doctors with zero improvement, which had the Mushwan family utterly worried sick. Of course, this definitely didn't include me. Pei Shiro walked down with deep furrows in her brow, and seeing me, her expression relaxed a little. Xiaochen is back. Have you finished taking care of the matters you needed to handle? If anything's up, you must remember to tell Mom. Don't keep it all bottled up inside by yourself. Mom, my matters are already taken care of, and it went pretty smoothly. That's good. Pei Shiro nodded gently, her eyes stained with heavy anxiety. Now that Xiaoxian is sick, Xiaochun, you mustn't have anything happen to you either. I don't know what's wrong with Xiaoxian. He was fine, and suddenly he fell sick. We went to the hospital for checks, and nothing's wrong. We've switched several doctors and taken medicine, and even gotten injections. Yet he shows no sign of improvement whatsoever. It's driving people crazy with worry. Mom, what did the doctor say? Seeing me take the initiative to care about Mushwan, Pei Shiro seemed somewhat pleased, feeling that my exterior was cold, but my heart warm, and my care for my younger brother remained unchanged. They said he has repressed melancholy in his heart. But how can that be possible? What kind of heavy burdens could a kid like Xiaoxian have? To the point of getting seriously ill? I think these doctors are one and all lacking in medical skill. If Xiaoxian had gotten sick right after learning the truth, then he might believe it. The incident had already passed over a month ago. He had clearly been completely fine before, so suddenly falling ill was obviously not because of that reason. Yet when asked, Xiaoxian couldn't give a clear explanation either. I gave a meaningful smile. Perhaps what the doctor said isn't wrong. He might really have some sort of mental burden. As the saying goes, doesn't mental illness require mental medicine to cure? Pei Shiro was stunned for a moment. Mental illness? But where would Xiaoxian get a mental illness? I smiled with pure, harmless innocence. Then you'll have to ask him what kind of things he's done. Pei Shiro cast a suspicious look at her son. Xiaochen, do you know something? It wasn't that I wanted to bother with Mushwan. Whatever happened to him had nothing to do with me. However, with him falling sick like this at home, it turned the household completely upside down, leaving Mom and Dad worrying themselves sick along with him. My mom and dad were endlessly worried along with them. Just look at my mom's meticulously cared for eyes. Fine lines have already popped up from all her worrying. I paused for a moment and brought up in person, Mom, have you seen the news online? I mean that incident at the mall. Of course, Pei Shiro remembered that matter, and she had also been paying attention to its progress out of concern. After all, the whole affair had blown up quite a bit. But wasn't this matter already dealt with? That girl had accidentally lost her footing, and the mall surveillance footage was released after the culprit was scared to death, causing public opinion to erupt in an uproar. She even knew that child's parents, though their relationship was ordinary, and she hadn't expected things to turn out like this. Now even the company had been affected, and she heard they were already preparing to move away. After figuring out the details, she had also felt deeply sighed and sorrowful. Yet what did this have to do with Xiaoxian? I said nonchalantly, Jiang Yan's situation is even worse than Mushwan's. He's crying out all day long about seeing the female employee's ghost. That day at the mall, Jiang Yan was also among them. Only he got lucky, hiding in the back, so his figure wasn't really caught on camera. So the moment that classmate died, he himself was scared half to death as well. A sudden jolt went through Pei Shiro's heart, and once she understood the implication, she widened her eyes in shock, her face filled with absolute disbelief. I didn't explicitly say Mushwan had participated, but Pei Shiro would figure it out on her own. Jiang Yin and Mushwan were exceptionally close friends, attending the same school and the same class. Could Mushwan truly be completely unaware of what vicious things Jiang Yin had done? How could that possibly be? Pei Shuuro clearly understood this point as well, so her expression instantly turned ugly. Having made my point, I said no more. That evening, after Mufu came home from work, Pei Shuuro told him about this matter. He was also greatly shocked after hearing it. After all, in his long-standing impression, Xiaoxian had always been well-behaved and sensible. How could he have done such a thing? Yet thinking of his abnormal behavior these past few days, Mufu's heart sank once more. The two of them went to Mushuan's room, and seeing them walk in, Mushuan forced himself to sit up from the bed. Mom and Dad, why did you come over? Is something wrong? Mushuan's condition was currently terrible. His complexion was an unnatural pale. His eyes were bloodshot all over, and his exhausted gaze had to be forced open. He didn't look like someone who had been sick for just a few days, but rather someone who had been ill for a long time. Mufa sat down, his expression extremely solemn, his stern gaze fixed right on him. Xiaoxian, we have something to ask you, and you must answer honestly. Mushuan's heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously glanced at Pei Shuuro, seeing that her expression was equally stern. A somewhat baffled and unsettled panic gripped him, yet he still nodded lightly. Okay, did you have any part in that incident? He asked straight to the point, catching Mushuan completely off guard, precisely because of this suddenness. Mushuan didn't have time to mask his expression, and it was caught in full view by the two of them. The look on his face explained everything. Deep disappointment stained the eyes of both parents. The son, who had always been well-behaved and kind in front of them, turned out to have such a personality behind the scenes. This made them feel utterly disappointed. They didn't remember ever teaching him to do such things. Pei Shuuro felt even more disappointed and heartbroken. She prided herself on never letting her guard down with his upbringing, frequently caring about and asking into every aspect of his life, and taking advantage of situations to educate him and build correct values and morals, not throwing him completely to domestic tutors and leaving him unattended, like many wealthy families did. So why would Xiaoxian do such a thing? Why would he go and ostracize a classmate, refusing to admit his mistake even after adults discovered it, to the point where it finally led to an accident? Mushuan met their disappointed gazes, and he knew the matter could no longer be concealed at all. The terror, fear, and worry weighing on his heart these past few days erupted all at once, and he burst into loud wails, quickly crying until he was completely out of breath. Crying all the while, he defended himself. Mom and Dad, I've let you down. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I really, truly know I was wrong. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. I didn't do anything to miss one. I didn't know she would end up like that. You say you didn't know about something like this? Mufu was so angry he didn't know what else to say. Whether a bad deed should be done or not. Does he not know, like a 3-year-old ignorant child? He's already 17 years old and has received a school education for over a dozen years. Does he not even have basic moral values and principles? Why on earth did you act like this? The well-behaved and sensible person you showed us. Was that all a complete lie? Why did you have to ostracize others? Mushuan bit his lip, his eyes flickering with hesitation, not daring to voice his inner thoughts. He knew that feeling of jealousy was wrong, yet he simply couldn't control it. Ever since he was little, he had always been exceptional, the most dazzling person in the crowd, the moon surrounded by all the stars. Yet that classmate had snatched away his brilliance and robbed him of his top throne. Are you still not going to tell the truth? Pei Shuuro stood up in anger, her voice sharp. Mushuan was shaking all over, his pale lips trembling, feeling too ashamed to state the reason. The more he spoke, the lower his voice became. Pei Shuuro wished she could just faint on the spot. Listen to what all this was. Just because someone else was more exceptional than him. He harbored extreme jealousy in his heart and constantly had his friends ostracize them outside. When discovered by others, he didn't correct his mistake, but instead used their family background to resort to threats. He was jealous that someone else had better grades. Why didn't he just work hard to surpass them properly, instead of wanting to harm people through such underhanded, crooked methods? He was shocked and utterly incredulous. Looking at Mushuan, he felt this son was completely a stranger. Was it that he hadn't understood his son well enough, or that he had never understood his son at all? He couldn't help falling into deep doubt. Pei Shuuro's gaze made Mushuan terrified, and he threw himself into his arms, clutching his waist tightly, crying loudly as he said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I really wasn't trying to do it on purpose. I didn't know it would turn out like this. In the beginning, I just wanted to see her make a fool of herself. I didn't want to hurt anyone truly. Later on, the things they did, I really never participated in those. I didn't know about what happened at the mall that day either. Jiang Yin never mentioned it to me, and he only told me after the matter blew up. It was only at that point that I found out. If I had been there, I definitely would have stopped it. I didn't want to hurt people. I really know I was wrong. I never expected things to end up like this. I won't ever dare do it again in the future. And I'll never be jealous of others again. I'll work hard to change and become better on my own. Mom, Dad, please believe me. Muxuan's tone was urgent and filled with entreaty. He wasn't of the Mufu family's biological bloodline. Right now, he was nothing more than an adopted son. He couldn't let Mom and Dad become completely disappointed in him. If they grew disappointed in him, would they stop wanting him and cruelly send him away? Then where could he even go? Muxuan was already feeling anxious and unsettled to begin with. The bizarre fate of the classmate involved in the incident, and the mastermind behind the fall, being scared to death, had stretched his nerves to the absolute limit, and his mental endurance had maxed out as well. Now that Mufu and his wife found out, the thought of being driven away kept flashing in his mind. Regret, terror, fear, anxiety, and despair surged into his heart all at once. On top of not resting well for many days, the sudden rush of panic in his chest cut off his breath, and he passed out cold. Another wave of chaos swept through the Mufu household, with everyone rushing to Muxuan's room. The only one who didn't show up was me. Muyawai muttered a few resentful words out of grievance, only to be overheard right by Pei Shiuro. He was already furious enough over this whole ordeal, and hearing his second daughter targeting his eldest son for Muxuan's sake, his anger instantly flared up to the max. With a stern expression and harsh words, he severely scolded. You target Xiaochun all day long. Get it through your head. He's your biological younger brother, not your enemy. Besides, is Xiaochun a doctor? Whether he comes or not, what kind of impact does it have on the situation? Pei Shiwero was actually a very lenient mother. Normally, she put on an act of wanting to discipline the kids, but everyone knew it was just an empty scare, and she rarely ever scolded or chewed them out like this. So Muyawai was completely stunned by the scolding. Mu Yuanting and the twins had just gotten back, and exchanging glances, doubts simultaneously arose in their hearts. Had something happened at home that they didn't know about? Sensing the unusual atmosphere in the Muffa household, the sisters had originally only suspected that something went wrong, but now they were basically certain of it. The only one completely unfazed was still me. I just went about doing whatever I wanted as usual, obsessively binge-watching television programs all day long. They had originally said they were going to hire a private tutor for me, but now that matter had been put on hold, while everyone else had heavy piles of homework. Aside from watching TV every day, only mealtime could get me to leave the couch. Xiaochen, you stay cooped up at home all day long. Did something happen around the house? Big Sis was kept busy over at the company, so sometimes she lost track of things at home. If anything had occurred around the house, you have to remember to tell Big Sis. Mu Yuanting was having a rare day off to rest at home, yet she had still spent half the day working in the study. Only after coming downstairs and seeing me watch TV did she pause, walk over, and sit down beside me, without even shifting her gaze away. Everything's fine at home, huh? Is it really fine? Mom and Dad had seemed troubled for the past few days. Was it because of your schooling? Since I wouldn't say anything, she had no choice but to probe on her own. I had been back at the Muffa household for over a month now. Yet, Mu Yuanting felt very much like a stranger to her younger brother. Hearing those words, I bestowed upon her a glance, though that look wasn't quite normal. What makes you so sure it's because of my matters? You automatically assume any family trouble means trouble with me? I didn't mean it like that. I know you're very well behaved. Nah, I'm not well behaved at all. Mu Yuanting felt a wave of mental exhaustion. If you want to know, go ask Mom and Dad. I don't want anyone talking trash about me in the future and trying to drive a wedge between our relationship. I shifted my gaze right back to the television screen. Mu Yuanting raised an eyebrow. Why do those words sound so awkward? Could it be that Xiao Xuan's illness had something to do with the previous 2 nights? Mu Yuanting couldn't help frowning. Before she could find a chance to ask, the new year arrived, and the atmosphere in the Muffa household finally eased up a bit. Mu Xuan, who had been bedridden for days, recovered, except he had become much more silent overall. This was the first New Year I spent back at the Mufa household, and both Mufu and Pei Shiuro attached great importance to it, having people start making preparations way ahead of time. It wasn't just the elaborate decorations around the house. Even the New Year's Eve dinner dishes were entirely chosen with heartfelt care. Everything completely revolved around me. As for the others in the family, they had already celebrated so many New Years by now. So what was wrong with letting Xiao-chun have it this year? Wasn't that just how it should be? When New Year's Eve finally arrived, the house was lively, and the previous gloom seemed as if it had never existed. Mufu and Pei Shiuro's attitude toward Mushuan didn't undergo any noticeable changes either. After that day, the two of them had talked it over once, and hadn't brought up the matter again since. It was my first time celebrating the new year in the mortal world, and I found everything fresh and fascinating. My entire demeanor became very cheerful. Not only did the smiles on my face increase, but my temper seemed to improve a lot as well. And I didn't even pick on Muyawai, making Pei Shiuro and Mufu endlessly delighted. Once the New Year celebrations concluded, the family prepared to return to the capital. The Mufu family's foundation was rooted in the capital, and Madame Mufu also lived there. As the head of the household and a senior, Mufu was naturally expected to bring his children back to pay New Year's greetings. Otherwise, it would easily give people something to criticize. Usually, the two branches spent New Year's Eve separately, unless there were special circumstances, gathering together in the capital to share a reunion dinner. Besides, since I had just returned, I needed to be taken to the capital to get acquainted with everyone. Aside from the three siblings, the Mufu family also had other extended relatives, with whom they still maintained contact. On the second day of the Lunar New Year, the family packed up and set out, returning to the capital aboard their own private jet. As someone experiencing a plane ride for the very first time, I was full of curiosity, pressing my entire body against the airplane window and staring fixedly outside, making Pei Shiuro find it endlessly amusing. Seeing this, Muyawai opened her mouth to make a sarcastic remark at me, but Pei Shiuro shot a glance her way, and she instantly shut her mouth and kept quiet. Upon arriving in the capital, the Mufu family had arranged for people to pick them up at the airport, and they got into the car and drove straight to the capital's ancestral residence. Before setting out, Pei Shiuro had gone over the complicated interpersonal relationships here with me once. I simply gave a slight nod as I listened, without uttering any nonsense. Arriving in front of the Mufu family's ancestral gates, I habitually sized up the surrounding environment. The Mufu family had stood tall in the capital for a century, so naturally their ancestral home had undergone continuous repairs over time, gradually evolving into its current appearance. It wasn't a European-style villa favored by the wealthy, but rather a traditional Chinese style, square-structured grand courtyard residence, where one could find thick traces of history. Generations of the Mufu family had maintained the estate exceptionally well. I heard that when the site was chosen and constructed, they invited a master, and back then the head of the household left behind a will before passing away, stipulating that future generations were not allowed to change the ancestral home's address, not allowed to easily move the foundation, and even less allowed to resell the old estate. If any repairs were done, they could only carry them out on the existing foundation. Violating this would mean losing their inheritance qualifications, precisely because this rule was established. Strictly speaking, the ancestral home hadn't undergone much alteration. The only thing that changed was the superstructure. I could tell the ancestral home truly aided and favored its descendants, and the intense fortune of these many years was faintly visible as purple chi lingering above the residence. Yet at the same time, it displayed signs of decline, foreshadowing that the ancestral estate's protective effects were vanishing. Since it looked like no one had messed with the ancestral home itself, then the problem could only stem from the descendants. The corners of my mouth hooked up slightly. Now, this was getting interesting. Happy New Year. The very first greeting upon entering the house was Happy New Year. Today, not only Mufu's family had come over, the married-off eldest sister had also brought her family along. So this must be Xiao-chun. I'm so sorry. I had matters at home last time and couldn't make it to Heir. You mustn't blame your aunt. Mu Xiaoxian noticed me at a glance. standing right beside Pei Shuero. An unfamiliar face could only be the son the third younger brother had brought back. "Hello, eldest aunt, I am Yukin." I put on a well-behaved appearance. Mu Xiaoxian looked at me with a smiling expression, surveying me up and down without a trace in her eyes. "You look just like your mom, and truth is, I am their son, so of course I look like them." Mu Xiaoshuan's smile seemed to pause for a second, as she said as if nothing were wrong. "That's also true. So this is the cousin from the Deep Mountain Taoist Temple. He really looks so country bumpkinish, not like a young master of the Manhwa family at all." A young man who looked about my age bounced straight over to Mu Xiaoshuan's side, his gaze landing directly on me and scanning me up and down, appearing extremely rude, with unmasked disdain in his tone. Pei Shuero's expression instantly darkened. Mu Xiaoxian hurriedly pulled her son back and gave a mild, inconsequential, soft reprimand. "How are you talking?" I used an even more critical and disgusted look to thoroughly sweep him up and down. "You, on the other hand, grew up by your parents' side, living in luxury. Yet looking at your character, it seems I'm still better off than you, Mu Xiaoxian." The expressions of the mother and son shifted. Meng Sijia was so angry his face turned completely red, never expecting me to ignore conventional norms like this. Wouldn't ordinary people just hold it in when encountering something like this? Why'd he talk back right on the spot? Pei Shuero felt a wave of jubilation in her heart. Yet on the surface, she mimicked Mu Xiaoshuan's previous manner. "How's your child talking?" I maintained a deadpan face and replied indifferently. "I'm just copying him. I thought capital young masters were all like this." Mu Yuai stood off to the side, forcefully holding back her laughter. Previously, she was always the one getting brutally roasted by me. So today the target had finally changed to someone else. Seeing how I didn't say a single polite half-sentence to him, why was she feeling so ridiculously happy? Even though this cousin was on good terms with Mu Xuan, she just really disliked him. Xiaoxian was also a young master of the Manhwa family, with a precious status and pampered endlessly. Yet he had never been as arrogant and unreasonable as this guy. And on top of that, he was exceptionally selfish, acting as if the entire world revolved around him. During family gatherings when they were little, Meng Sijia wouldn't dare excessively pester the eldest sister, but he was completely different toward everyone else, forcing them all to become his personal toys. No matter what he wanted, everyone had to give way to him. And if they didn't obey, he'd throw massive tantrums, while shifting the blame for the trouble he caused onto the sisters, making them take the fall for plenty of undeserved blame. As he grew older, he learned how to put on a pitiful act, so whenever the others saw him coming, they felt pure annoyance. Now, someone was finally able to put him in his place. Pei Shuero glared at her second daughter, signaling her to tone it down and not go too far, then turned back with an apologetic expression to face Mu Xiaoxian. "Eldest sister, I'm so sorry. Xiaoqian is good at everything. He's just a bit too blunt. Please don't take it to heart." With that, she turned her gaze back to instruct me. "Capital young masters naturally have great breeding, and your cousin was just joking around earlier. You mustn't be petty and take it seriously." Hearing this, Mu Xiaoxian felt her stomach boil with frustration. What's that supposed to mean? Was her son genuinely just being petty or what? For the first time ever experiencing such treatment, Meng Sijia stamped his foot and stormed off unhappily. When no one was paying attention, Mu Yuai lowered her voice to praise me for doing a great job. "You simply can't spoil him rotten like that." I gave a calm, dismissive glance. "I'm not his parents, so of course I'm not going to spoil him." That makes so much sense. Back when she used to get bullied, why didn't she think like that? Aside from the eldest aunt's family, whom we hadn't seen yet, the other members of the Mufu main household were all present, though I had little contact with the various male cousins, just introducing ourselves and getting acquainted. Lu Manchi and Muayinjuan had given birth to 3 sons. The second and youngest boys were close in age, while the eldest son was already married, having betrothed a wealthy young lady from the capital. Mu Xiaoxian and Xie Fuxing only had one child, which was Meng Sijia. With everyone gathered together, there were quite a lot of people present, making it feel extremely lively. Madame Mufu's smile hadn't faded away once. "Why has Xiaoxian lost so much weight?" Madame Mufu pulled Mu Xuan to her side, quietly furrowing her brows as she looked him up and down. Mu Xuan touched his face and was just about to deny it, when Madame Mufu turned toward Pei Shuero, opening her mouth with dissatisfied accusation. Even though Xiao Xian made a mistake regarding his upbringing, he has still been raised in the Mufu household for so many years. You all can't mistreat him just because of blood relations. Pei Shuero's expression immediately turned unsightly. What did she mean by saying they mistreated Xiao Xian? When had they ever mistreated him? Seeing Pei Shuero's expression shift, Mu Xuan hurriedly spoke up to explain, "Grandma, no, Mom and Dad treat me really well. I just caught a cold and ran a fever a few days ago and got sick because I wasn't careful during the winter. Mom and Dad treat me very well. So Grandma, please don't misunderstand." If Mu Xuan had acted as naturally as he used to, saying those words in a spoiled, acting cute tone, Madame Mufu still would have believed him. Yet precisely because of the incident with Wen Yimo, he still had a massive knot in his heart, feeling convinced that Mom and Dad must have been disappointed in him, which made him act somewhat overly cautious. Hurriedly explaining should have been a good thing, but in the eyes of onlookers, it turned into something else, making it backfire and look even more suspicious. Elder Madame Mufu grasped Mu Xuan's hand. "Xiao Xian, don't overthink things either. You are a young master of my Mufu family, no matter what. I'll put my words right here. From now on, if anyone dares to make things difficult for you, just call Grandma. Grandma will stand up for you." As she spoke, she cast a pointed, meaningful glance in my direction. Although I noticed it, I remained completely unfazed. I didn't find it strange either. Even though Mu Xuan wasn't a biological child of the Mufu family, he had still been raised by them for over a dozen years. The affection built over all those years wasn't fake affection. And once emotional investment receives a response, it's impossible to take it back overnight. Blood relations are important, but the affection accumulated day by day is also crucial. I still stand by what I said. As long as Mu Xuan doesn't come looking for trouble with me, I have zero interest in playing spoiler. As for boring jealousy, what even is that? What are you talking about? Who on earth is bullying Xiao Xian? Xiao Xian really did get sick recently, dragging it out for a few days without managing to get him back to health. Mufu was quite unsatisfied with his mother's words. If, as she said, they were mistreating Xiao Qian, then what was the point of keeping him here? Were they just asking to be tormented? Mu Xuan looked imploringly at elder Madame Mufu. "Mom and Dad really treat me very well. Please don't blame them. You should be grateful just to be allowed to stay. Who made him not the real young master after all? All right. Don't get upset. Your grandmother is just too worried about you. Your grandmother talks about you all day long. And if it weren't for the fact that school is starting soon, she'd want to keep you here for a while longer." Seeing that the atmosphere was about to be ruined, Lu Manchi hurriedly spoke up to defuse the awkwardness. Elder Madame Mufu didn't dwell on it either, reaching out to stroke Mu Xuan's head, her gaze filled with deep affection. "Next year, you'll be taking the college entrance exam. You should apply to Capital University and conveniently stay at the Mufu estate." Mu Xuan instinctively looked toward Pei Shuero, as if consulting her opinion. Pei Shuero didn't avoid his gaze at all. Regarding the matter of college applications, hadn't the family already discussed it long ago? It all depended on what Xiao Xian himself liked. Instead, she followed right along with the old lady's words. "Your grandmother is right. Applying to Capital University will make it convenient for us to look after you." Mu Xuan was happy for a brief moment, before doubt inevitably arose in his heart. Had Mom truly grown disappointed in him? Did she not like him anymore? She was telling him to apply to Capital University so that he could stay far away from home and wouldn't have to show up around the house often. His mood plummeted instantly, yet he didn't dare show anything, forced to put on a fake smile. Fortunately, he kept his head lowered. Otherwise, who knew what everyone would think? Mufu's family was staying in the capital for 2 days, and Pei Shuero planned to take me out to look around everywhere, seeing as I had never been to the capital before. There were plenty of fun places and delicious foods in the capital. The most common thing to do during the new year was visiting temples, something most capital residents would do. Plus, there were grand temple fairs, which were exceptionally lively. By the 3rd day, Muayanjuan also got into the spirit of things, calling everyone together, saying it was a rare family reunion, so they might as well all go together since. Having more people made it lively. Thus, the whole big family set off in 2 commercial vans. not knowing what was going through his head. Meng Sijia also tagged along to join in on the excitement, dragging Mushuan to sit in the eldest uncle's car, while kicking out Myenjiwen's youngest son. Miyachu had a somewhat clumsy mouth and didn't know how to say flattering things, making it obvious she was an honest and steadfast girl. She had been close with Muyawai since childhood, and seeing the two of them getting along well and chatting away, I cast a meaningful look their way. Sure enough, birds of a feather flocked together. Muyawai herself was a goofball, so she naturally clicked with someone just as dorky as Yushua. Muyawai noticed my gaze and gave me a bewildered look. What was he trying to pull this time? With the new year here, she hoped he wouldn't get her scolded again. I quickly withdrew my gaze. The group headed to the capital's most famous temple. This temple had a history of over 300 years. Although it had weathered dynastic changes and the baptism of war, it had miraculously survived and remained remarkably well preserved. The Buddha statues in the main hall had sat steadfastly for over 300 years, continuing as always to gaze with compassionate eyes upon the bustling mortal world. I stepped into the main hall without the slightest psychological burden, kneeling on the prayer mat alongside everyone else, closing my eyes and chanting silently in my heart, hoping to quickly accumulate enough merit to return to the underworld and restart the gate of reincarnation. After chanting for a while, I finally opened my eyes, meeting the compassionate gaze of the Buddha statue. I paused for a second. How come the Buddha statue's expression felt a bit off, suspecting whether it was just my own guilty conscience, making the Buddha statue look weird to me? I stared unblinkingly at the statue, trying to verify if it was my own problem. Xiaoqin, you aren't allowed to stare at the Buddha statue like that. The Buddha will blame you. The Buddha statue is going to punish us for this. After finishing her prayers, Pei Shuoro found that while her son bowed properly, his eyes were acting far too wild, staring fixedly at the Buddha statue ahead. I withdrew my gaze. Mom, didn't you feel like its gaze was weird? Pei Shuoro glanced casually at it, then quickly pulled her gaze away, smiling as she said, "What on earth is this kid thinking? Aren't Buddha statues all like this? What's so weird about it?" This Buddha statue in the main hall has been here for over 300 years already. Ever since the temple was built, it has been standing there, never changing once. How could there possibly be anything weird about it? Remembering that her son grew up in a Taoist temple, Pei Shuoro gently comforted him. Even though there are a lot of temples nowadays, there are also Taoist temples around. When we have time, I'll take you to visit one. If I weren't the crown prince of the underworld, I'd have been scared by that suggestion. Although I'm not an evil spirit, I'm still a denizen of the underworld after all. And by nature, we aren't cut from the same cloth as Buddhist immortals. It's better to come to places like this less often from now on. After all, we aren't practitioners of the same path. Before getting up, I couldn't help taking another look, still feeling like that gaze was somehow off. At first glance, it looked extremely compassionate, but looking closer, it gave off an eerie, sinister vibe. Not feeling like the real deal at all, but rather like, after stepping out of the main hall, I put those thoughts away. Perhaps I was just being overly suspicious. The Buddha statue of this temple had been passed down for over 300 years, having received who knows how many offerings of incense. If there really were any problems, they should have been purified by the incense smoke long ago. Pei Shuoro had visited this temple a few times before, and the scenery truly was quite nice. It had snowed heavily in the capital before the new year, and with the temperatures staying low over the past few days, the snow hadn't melted yet, making it the perfect time to head up the mountain to view the snowscape. Hearing that there was snow scenery to see, I became very interested. I genuinely had never seen snow before. Well, I probably hadn't anyway. How long I stayed in the underworld city was something I couldn't clearly remember. And before arriving there, I probably hadn't seen any either. Otherwise, why would I have zero memories of it? Watching me walk ahead, Pei Shuoro noticed I had started skipping and hopping around slightly, completely dropping the mature and steady demeanor I usually wore home. Only at a moment like this did I look like a regular young boy. Looking at her lively son, the corners of her lips curved into a tender smile, her eyes brimming with deep affection, though deep down there was still a lingering trace of regret over having missed out on her son's growth. The Mufu sisters watched with rising amusement, thinking this younger brother of theirs had the personality of a little fossil, only to realize he really was just a kid after all. As for why he was more composed than an adult, there was no need to overthink it. A surge of sibling affection welled up in Muyawai's heart. I should definitely cut him some more slack from now on, right? Who told her to be the fourth elder sister? As they walked along, Muyawai felt a mischievous urge bubble up. She bent down, scooped up a handful of snow, and rolled it into a snowball, hurling it right at me ahead. The snowball landed squarely on me. My footsteps came to a halt, and with a rigid little face, I turned around. The three Mufu sisters pointed fingers at one another all at once, each signaling that she was completely innocent. I narrowed my eyes at Muyawai. Her guts had sure grown, daring to pelt me with snow. Seeing me stare at her with that provocative look, I fixed my gaze on her for a moment, then suddenly smiled, revealing my pristine white teeth. On my head, I wore a white knit cap, with two fluffy pom-poms dangling down, and the brim of the hat was ringed with cute decorations. With that smile of mine, my little face took on a chubby, soft-looking feel, just like a grinning little milk cat. Watching this, the four sisters felt their hearts melt into a warm, tingly fuzziness, with a strong urge welling up to walk right over and pinch my cheeks. Was our little brother really this cute? Compared to his usual maturity, this probably counted as a severe case of gapmo. I wasn't about to let a smile ruin my dignity. Yet from that moment on, in the hearts of my four elder sisters, I left behind a profound impression of gapmo. Muyawai was also stunned for a moment, scratching her head, as she felt he somehow seemed even cuter than Mushwan. With that thought in mind, a clump of white flew straight at him. He reacted quickly and dodged rapidly, but still failed to avoid it, and the snow slammed right into his face. He stood there in a daze. Thinking I could dodge it, I put my hands on my hips and laughed triumphantly. You wanted to hit me and thought you could dodge? Keep dreaming. Pei Shiwaro stood off to the side, clenching her fists in encouragement and praise. Sun Xiaochen, great hit. Brilliant hit. Your fourth sister just deserves a beating. Give her a good thrashing. As long as you don't beat her to death, it's fine. Mom, am I even your daughter? Muyawai wailed in a breakdown. Pei Shiwaro shot him a look of utter disdain. I wish you weren't my daughter. It's just a pity you look way too much like me. You probably weren't swapped at birth after all. Muyawai felt as though her heart had been stabbed, crying tears of grief. Aren't you worried, the little brother? He asked, refusing to give up. Pei Shiwaro waved her hand dismissively. That just proves you're useless. What's wrong with getting hit by a few snowballs? Could it actually injure you? If you really get hurt by them, it just proves you're too weak, and you'll be laughed at by people in the future. Amidst our words, I rolled another snowball and hurled it right at him. I've been wanting to deal with Muyawai for a while anyway. She only grew in height without growing any brains, and if she got manipulated by someone else's 2 sentences down the road, who knew what trouble she might get used to causing? Normally, I couldn't even be bothered with her, but today she walked right into it of her own accord, so I wouldn't stand on ceremony. I'd teach her a lesson first before talking, and so Muyawai and I started going at it. At first, thinking of his own sturdy build, he figured he couldn't possibly lose a snowball fight to a little boy, intending to use the opportunity to vent his frustration. Who could have guessed, though, that reality is brutally harsh? He got completely toyed with and thrashed, in the end pelted by me until he was dodging wildly with his head covered. What was hateful was those 3 heartless sisters of his, who only cared about watching the spectacle from the sidelines, with not a single one coming over to lend him a hand. In a family of 8, was he actually the one picked off the street? What are you all doing? The bickering Muyawai and I both stopped. Muyawai let out a secret sigh of relief. How utterly humiliating. Actually losing a snowball fight to her younger brother. It was Mushwan and Meng Sijia. Everyone had come together, but after finishing their prayers, they had split up into separate groups. Song Sijia had insisted on dragging Mushwan along, so Mushwan had simply gone off with him, and now they had bumped into each other. Seeing Muyawai emerge looking a complete mess, her nice clothes dirted from being pelted with snow, her hair full of snow like a bird's nest, and then looking back at me, completely clean and pristine, Mushwan looked somewhat displeased. Xiaochen, how could you hit the 4th sister to this extent? Hearing those words, Muyawai realized things were going south, and hurriedly wanted to explain before I could open my mouth. But I didn't give her any time at all. If you hadn't spoken up, I could have hit her even harder. Besides, she's the one who threw at me first. She only threw it once. So as a result, I treated her like a pig and pelted her everywhere. Mu Xuan choked up for a second, his mouth opening and closing. As he stammered, "You still shouldn't beat her up like this." Muyawai hurriedly spoke up to smooth things over. "Xiaoxian, I'm fine. We were just playing a snowball fight. It doesn't hurt at all. Just that these clothes got a bit dirty. No need to worry." Not wanting Mu Xuan to ruin the mood, I tossed the snowball in my hand to the side, patted my palms clean, let out a huff, and walked over to Pei Shiuro's side. "Mom, let's keep going." Pei Shiuro smiled and nodded, then looked toward Mu Xuan and Meng Xijia. "Since we've bumped into each other, let's stick together. With so many people during the new year, it's easy for accidents to happen." Although she worried the two of them might start something up, her gaze landed on Mu Xuan. I had once done a favor for a master, and he had promised me a single request in return. Previously, I never thought about cashing in that promise. But now he had no choice left. He had to save his eldest grandson. Pei Shiro and her group wandered around the temple grounds, and the rest of the trip went smoothly until they left. The couple finally put their minds completely at ease. After staying in the capital for 2 days, they set off to return to Heir, while Father Mu busied himself with the arrangements for my schooling. After turning it over and over in their minds, the couple decided to have me attend Mu Xuan's school. Even though the two boys' relationship was quite ordinary, no matter what, being in the same school and same class would allow them to look after each other to some extent. When the couple thought about this point, they actually didn't have an ounce of confidence in their hearts. Given Xiaoqin's rebellious patience, hoping he'd look after Mu Xuan was impossible. Still, they decided on it in the end, holding onto a tiny shred of hopeful, wishful thinking. Maybe things wouldn't turn out the way they expected. Throughout the winter break, I had been constantly making up for lost lessons. Several of the Mufu sisters tutored me, and they also hired private teachers to come to the house. At first, everyone couldn't quite figure out the situation regarding what I had actually studied in the past, but very quickly it became crystal clear. Although I had never attended school systematically, the female official who raised me had taught me quite a lot, and my own comprehension ability was exceptional, allowing me to learn at an extremely fast pace. Father Mu and Pei Shiuro were pleasantly surprised, while internally feeling immensely relieved. It was fortunate that the female official was a learned person, who had taught Xiaoqin a great deal of knowledge. Otherwise, he really might have turned out looking like an illiterate. The start of school arrived in no time. Today, Father Mu pushed back his work schedule to personally drive his son to school. In the car were an anxious Pei Shiuro and Muyawai, representing the 4 sisters. Inside the car, Pei Shiuro kept on nagging endlessly. I didn't show any sign of impatience, whereas Muyawai felt like calluses were growing in her ears. "Mom, you can stop about now. He's just going to school. You'd think he was going off to do something dangerous." Muyawai rolled her eyes. "Besides, he's not even staying in the dorms. He comes home every day. What could possibly happen?" Pei Shiuro glared fiercely at her. "If you don't understand anything, just shut your mouth. Something happened at this school not too long ago. And if it weren't for the fact that Xiao Xian has been studying here all along, and this is his final semester, I wouldn't let Xiaoqin come study here for anything." Thinking of that unexpected incident, Pei Shiuro felt a wave of discomfort bubble up in her heart. After all, Mu Xuan had also been involved in that matter. She wanted to say a few words about it, but seeing the silent Mu Xuan beside her, the words involuntarily swallowed themselves back down. Forget it. Let's believe he knows he was completely in the wrong, and won't dare do anything foolish again. If she kept dwelling on it, he'd get sensitive and overthink things once more. "Mom, don't worry anymore. I won't let anyone bully me." I knew what she was worrying about. Forget being a young master of the Mufu family. Even if I were just an ordinary person, if anyone dared to bully me, I'd pay them back 100-fold. Bad people are all bullies of the weak and fearers of the strong. As long as you are fiercer than them, they'll turn around and fear you instead. Father Mu and Pei Shuro dropped me off at the school gates, where they couldn't go any further. Normally the school didn't allow parents inside, so they could only drop off and pick up students at the entrance. Watching Mu Xuan and me walk inside, Pei Shiuro still felt somewhat worried. Father Mu wrapped an arm around her shoulder and offered comfort. "Don't worry. Xiaoqin is a smart kid. He'll be fine. Besides, he's not someone who lets himself get taken advantage of." Pei Shiuro gave him a faint glance, too lazy to explain too much to him. Precisely because of his temperament, she worried even more. What if a conflict or dispute broke out? Entering the school grounds, my eyes couldn't hide my curiosity as I carefully looked around everywhere. Children in this era really are blessed. Even boys get to enter schoolhouses together, requiring only a tiny bit of money. Such a spacious and bright place. Such flat and clean ground. In summer, they don't have to fear the scorching heat. And in winter, they don't have to dread the bitter cold. Unlike children of the past, where only the upper class and noble children had decent school environments, while commoner children found it exceptionally difficult to even study. Why would I think of things like this? Could it be that I once witnessed something similar? I felt a brief flash of puzzlement, but finding no matching memories in my mind. I simply figured I must have heard ghosts talking about it before. Mushwan noticed my look of amazement and my behavior of scanning my surroundings and couldn't help feeling intensely disdainful in his heart, lowering his eyes to conceal the contempt in his gaze. Xiaochen, do you know how to get to your classroom? Do you want me to lead the way? Mushwan asked, standing in front of the teaching building. I gave him a cold, dismissive glance. No need. Mushwan offered a faint smile. Then go ahead on your own. Your classroom is right upstairs and is super easy to find. If you can't find it, just ask a teacher. Mushwan felt fortunate that the timing of my return fell right when winter break was approaching, sparing him from facing the strange looks of those around him. Thinking of this, Mushwan let out a breath and turned to walk off in one direction. As for me, I headed in the opposite direction, stopping at the back door of Class F's classroom to look up and check, making sure I hadn't gone to the wrong place, before falling into silence. No wonder Father's expression had been so complicated and unspeakable. We heard I was coming to Class F. You must be the new student, right? Your name is Mukin, correct? Class F's head teacher hurried over, and seeing a boy standing at the back door, he paused as he remembered this arrival. I whirled around in a flash, staring the teacher up and down carefully to confirm his identity, then bowed properly at the waist. Hello, teacher. The teacher was left momentarily stunned by my action. Was he really that shocked, to the point of even giving a formal bow? Student Mukin, I am your head teacher. My last name is Liu, and everyone calls me Big Liu. You can call me that too. And if you run into any trouble in the future, come find me. I gently shook my head, saying with complete solemnity and seriousness, you are a teacher, so you deserve respect. How could I call you by a nickname like Big Liu? Respecting teachers and valuing the Tao is basic etiquette. Big Liu suddenly felt a little moved. Having been a teacher for so long, this was the first time he had ever felt his soul experience a tremor. However, that emotion vanished in a flash, and Big Liu quickly returned to normal. Class is starting right away. Come inside with me. Big Liu walked briskly into the classroom, yet the students turned a blind eye to him. Everyone kept doing whatever they were doing, making a noisy ruckus. Big Liu was clearly completely used to it. Quiet down, everyone, class is starting. Big Liu shouted at the top of his lungs to introduce the new transfer student. The noise in the classroom paused for a second, and everyone's gazes immediately drifted over, sizing me up as I stood on the podium. Whoa, a new student transferring in at this time of year. That's pretty surprising. This good-looking guy isn't bad-looking at all, huh? He's a major hottie. Listening to the chatter breaking out below, Big Liu felt an awkward flush spread across his face. He coughed once and spoke to me warmly. Student Mukin, why don't you introduce yourself first? I nodded, my expression calm as I looked out at the crowd below. I am Mukin. Student Mu, is that really it? I gave him a bewildered look. What else was I supposed to say? That self-introduction really was concise. With the self-introduction finished, the next step should naturally be arranging seating. While Big Liu was still contemplating where to have me sit, I scanned the room with a glance of my own and walked directly toward a certain spot. Seeing me sit down at a particular desk, Big Liu and the students all dropped their jaws in an expression of extreme shock and astonishment. Alongside their shock, the students seemed filled with the eager anticipation of watching a good show unfold. Who told you to sit here? I turned my head to look at my desk mate. Can't I sit here? No, you can't. I don't want to sit with anyone else. Lu Qiuping said with a dark face. If it weren't for the fact that the newcomer was a guy, he would have already lashed out with a kick. Where did this kid get the guts to sit right next to him? I withdrew my gaze, gave a calm O, and said, then you can switch seats. Lu Qiuping and the surrounding students all wore stunned expressions. After snapping back to reality, he laughed in sheer anger, reaching out to point at himself. Do you know who I am? Nope. He hadn't introduced himself, after all. So how was I supposed to know who he was? Not knowing who I am, and you dare talk to me like that? Don't think that just because you're a guy, I won't dare hit you. Finally sparing him a glance. If you want to fight, go right now, otherwise I'll put you in your place. I thought for a moment and said earnestly, let's have a fight then. How about we throw down? If I win, from now on you listen to me. If I lose, I'll listen to you. How's that? The classroom was instantly startled, and then everyone burst into loud laughter. Oh man, I'm dying. He said he wants to fight Lu Qiuping. Does he not know how badass our big Sis Ping is? Sis Ping, teach him a lesson. Lu Qiuping sneered, curling her lip. I never throw hands with boys. He's not even worth a single finger of mine. I smiled faintly. I see you just don't dare fight me. You're scared of losing. Lu Qiuping, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, leaped straight up from her seat. Me? Scared of losing? What a total joke. All right, since you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, then I'll grant your wish. Originally, seeing that you looked decent, I was prepared to be magnanimous and not fuss over your private business. But you're literally asking to be humiliated. Meeting my gaze, her eyes were filled with utter disgust, convinced I was just like all the other guys trying to cozy up to her. And it's a deal. I calmly laid out my textbooks, sitting with posture rigidly upright, signaling that I was ready for class to begin. Xiaoxian, how come your brother isn't with you? Did your parents not put him in the same class? After Muxuan returned to his classroom and sat down, the friends he usually hung out with immediately crowded around to ask. Muxuan replied, Xiaoqian went to Class F. He actually went to Class F? That means his grades must be terrible. Didn't they say your parents dote on him a lot? How could they let him go to Class F? Class F is just a place where people coast by. They're all planning to study abroad after the college entrance exams anyway. Most of them are youngest sons or the unfavored ones, who don't need to worry about inheriting the family business in the future. They just collect their allowance and coast. They don't care about grades at all, and nobody else cares either. As long as they don't cause trouble at school, everything else is ignored. If the Mu family let him go to Class F, it looks like they don't dote on him that much after all, huh? Right? Even though he's the biological son, he spent over a decade out in the wild. Who knows what kind of person he turned out to be? How could he possibly compare to someone painstakingly cultivated like Xiaoxian? It looks like Xiaoxian is still the real young master of the Mu family. Muxuan hesitated for a second on the surface. It's just that Xiaoqian didn't do well on his exams. He didn't mention. At first, Father Mu wanted to pull strings to transfer me into Class 1, but I decisively turned it down myself. Father Mu was a complete doting maniac, so naturally he wouldn't force his son. That was why I ended up in Class F. Muxuan's friend curled his lip to only be able to go to Class F. He really is pathetic. Xiaoxian is ranked first in Class 1. The gap is just way too huge. Muxuan continued to offer an explanation. Xiaoqian didn't want it either. He used to live in a Taoist temple and never even went to a regular school. So getting to Class F is already pretty good. As long as he studies hard, he can still transfer to another class later. We're already in the second half of the semester. What transferring is there to do? By the time the entrance exams are over, it'll be time to change schools anyway. You said he lived in a Taoist temple. Is that for real? Hearing this explosive piece of news, even more classmates crowded around to gossip. There's nothing much to say about it. Class is about to start. Hurry up and go back to your seats. Muxuan gave the classmates beside him a shove, urging them to return to their seats. Yet the more he refused to talk about it in detail, the more curious everyone grew in their hearts, leaving them with no choice but to guess secretly on their own. Muxuan sat down at his own desk, lowering his gaze as he flipped open his textbook, looking as gentle and well-behaved as ever. Only, he suddenly turned his head to look toward the spot where a familiar person should have been sitting. Yet right now, that seat was completely empty. The person who used to sit there was gone. Thinking of Jiang Yin, his expression darkened slightly, and his gaze inadvertently swept past a certain place, pulling his gaze back as if pricked by a needle, not daring to take another look. That was when Yimo's seat. Ever since the incident, everything had changed. Usually, the various classes kept to themselves in peace, not interfering with one another and finding each other an eyesore. Class F was at the very bottom of the school hierarchy, and the further ahead other classes were, the more disdainful they were of having any interaction. But today was different. Right as class ended, a classmate ran back in at top speed, shouting excitedly at the top of their lungs, "Big news! Big news! People from Class F are going to fight. Are you out of your mind? What's so rare about a fight in Class F? Is there even a day they don't fight?" "No, that's not it," the returning classmates said while heavily stamping their feet, casting a meaningful look toward Mushwan. Mushwan was left completely bewildered by the look. The classmate purposely put on a mysterious facade. "Do you know who's fighting Lu Qiuping?" Their gaze landed on Mushwan once again, with such an obvious hint. The people around them couldn't ignore it even if they wanted to. Mushwan's expression nearly froze. Everyone exchanged glances, and a close male friend asked, "You mean Xiaoshuan's younger brother is fighting Lu Qiuping?" "No way. Who is Lu Qiuping?" "He's already a senior in high school, and across the entire school. He's a figure everyone knows. Ever since junior high, he's been a notorious troublemaker, though strictly in a negative sense." "That's right, it's Mukin." People from Class F said it themselves, and they even said Mukin took the initiative to provoke him, challenging him to meet at the grove behind the school after classes let out. The classmate spoke jokingly while looking over at Mushwan. "Student Mushwan, your little brother really is something else, huh? He actually dares to challenge Lu Qiuping. Has he had formal training or something? He must be seriously badass." Confirming the classmate wasn't joking, Mushwan bolted up from his seat and headed straight out, feeling a mix of anger and panic in his heart. Has Mukin lost his mind? Is there anyone he doesn't dare to provoke? Does he think the school is the Mu family estate, where everyone yields to him and lets him run amok as he pleases? He marched angrily toward Class F to find Mukin, only to grind to a halt halfway there. He bit down hard on his lower lip, clenched his fists tightly, and his expression flickered uncertainly. Stopping him would certainly be for the best, preventing any trouble that might cause Mom and Dad to blame him. But if he didn't stop him, and he actually ended up fighting Lu Qiuping, trouble would brew no matter what. He hadn't had much contact with Lu Qiuping himself, but he had heard plenty of things about him, and knew the Lu family wasn't an ordinary household. Mukin had gone and provoked him. With a grimace, he turned around and started walking back. "Forget it, I'm not getting involved." Even if I went to persuade him, he wouldn't listen anyway. To put it bluntly, it might just end up making him lose face right along with him. Didn't they say the fight was after school? Let's go try to talk some sense into him after classes end. If he still refuses to listen, I'll call Big Sister, and Mom won't blame him then. The atmosphere in Class F remained high-strung all morning. Big Lou had overheard the two of them talking, but didn't take it seriously at all. Before leaving class, he gave a few words of caution, telling Qiuping not to lower himself to bickering with a new boy, and to maintain his dignity. With that instruction given, he walked away. He understood Lu Qiuping to a certain extent, and figured he wouldn't take his frustrations out on a transfer student. What he didn't anticipate was that I wasn't someone to be trifled with either. And so, right as class ended, the students of Class F made a grand, boisterous procession, swarming together toward the grove behind the school. I glanced at the students tagging along, and then fixed my gaze on Lu Qiuping. Should I give him a quick heads up and have the unrelated bystanders leave first? Otherwise, things might get terribly embarrassing for him later. Caring about saving face was human nature, after all. In Wangzicheng, this sort of thing happened all the time. People would lose a fight, burst into tears, and come begging me to dispense justice. How is that even dispensing justice? If you're inferior in skill, shouldn't you just take your lumps? Eventually, nobody bothered me with trivial matters anymore. Taking my sister's place in managing affairs meant I had far too much on my plate. How could he possibly have the time to care about such a trivial matter? Lu Qiuping felt like my gaze was messed up, but he had no proof. How do you want to fight? Well, it hasn't started yet. As long as you honestly admit your mistake, we could just let this matter go. I'll be magnanimous and not hold it against you. Lu Qiuping said arrogantly. Fighting a guy was genuinely embarrassing, and even if he won, he'd probably just get mocked for it. Yet letting it go like this wouldn't work either. Where'd he put his face? Therefore, the other guy had to apologize and admit he was wrong. Fight however you're best at fighting. Cut the crap, and let's get started already. I still need to get home early. The Mu family driver's probably already here. Lu Qiuping was so angry he laughed instead. Fine, since someone was throwing themselves at him to get beaten up, He didn't need to be overly polite either. It was rare for him to act like a gentleman for once. And yet the other guy didn't appreciate it at all. Mushwan had left right as class ended. The classmates assumed he was going over to stop it. And true to form, he did head to the grove, only to take one glance from afar and turn right back around, making a beeline straight for the school gates. When he reached the school entrance, he quickly spotted the Mu family car. The person stepping out from the driver's seat was none other than the eldest sister, Mu Wanting. His eyes lit up as he hurried over, blurted out in a fluster, "Big sister, you came at just the right time. Xiao Chen is about to get into a fight with someone. Hurry up and go stop him." Mu Wanting was completely dumbfounded, thinking she must have misheard him. "A fight? You're saying Xiao Chen is going to fight someone?" Mushwan wore a look of intense anxiety and worry. I don't know why, but right after arriving at school, he got into a conflict with the class thorn in the side and agreed to fight in the grove after school. I couldn't talk him out of it. "Big sister, please go quickly. What if he gets beaten up by the time you're late?" Hearing this, Mu Wanting grew anxious as well. Without sparing time to ask further questions, she headed straight toward the school. The security guard tried to stop her, but she pulled rank and flashed her identity, stating that something had happened to a child in her family, and the guard didn't dare block her any further, letting her right in just like that. Mushwan anxiously led his eldest sister rushing toward the grove, his performance entirely without a single flaw, though a glint of anticipation flickered in the depths of his eyes from time to time. Preoccupied with her younger brother, Mu Wanting didn't notice a thing. The two of them hurried all the way to the woods, only for the scene before them to stun them both and leave them sinking into silence. Mu Wanting in particular was now seriously starting to doubt reality, having expected to witness her brother being bullied. "Why did you come into the school? It's getting late. Let's go home." It took Mu Wanting half a beat to snap back to her senses, and seeing that I had already walked several meters away, she hurriedly chased after me. It wasn't until we were finally back inside the car that she managed to recover her reason and her voice. Her expression was intensely complicated as she stared at me with an unreadable look. I looked right back at her and explained honestly, "Oh, I just got into a fight with someone. I won, so there's no need to tell Mom and Dad about this little thing. So they don't worry, don't you think?" She felt that this was wrong. How could he possibly go around fighting people? And furthermore, why on earth did he win? You must have taken martial arts classes. Aside from this reason, she couldn't think of any other explanation. And of course he had taken classes. And he was pretty badass too. In Wang Ziqing, aside from Big Sister, I was the strongest one around. Mu Wanting fell into silence as she stared at me. At that moment, Mushwan finally caught up and yanked the car door open, climbing into the back seat while panting heavily. Before he could even catch his breath, I dropped a single sentence on him. "Today's matter shouldn't reach Mom and Dad's ears, so they don't have to worry. Don't you think?" Mushwan met my cold, indifferent eyes and couldn't help choking up for a second. He subconsciously glanced at Mu Wanting, who was still immersed in sheer shock, and hadn't paid any attention to his gaze at all, showing zero reaction whatsoever. Mushwan had no choice but to drop his gaze, feeling aggrieved and deeply unwilling, knowing I wouldn't bring it up to Mom and Dad. Xiao Chen had never mentioned the fighting either. Along the way, Mu Wanting couldn't help asking, "Did you guys not ask about it at all?" My answer was righteous and confident. Mu Wanting was left momentarily speechless. Thinking it over, a wave of guilt welled up inside her heart. Ever since Xiao Chen came home, she hadn't shown enough care, never proactively asking about or trying to understand him, even worrying that Xiao Xian would be wronged, fearing that growing up out in the wild would make him hot-headed, lacking tact and subtlety, and clueless about how to be considerate toward family, worrying the household would be thrown into total chaos. He was her biological younger brother, after all, her flesh and blood younger brother from the same mother. She only knew he grew up in a Taoist temple, yet she had never cared about how he grew up, or what kind of days he had lived through. In the months after Master passed away, how had he spent his days alone? Had he run into bad situations? Which was why he learned self-defense techniques. Upon returning home, Peishiro's first instinct was to care about how his school life went today, asking about it in detail. My answers were completely watertight, and she never imagined her well-behaved son had gotten into a fight. Hearing that things were fine, she finally felt relieved. Mushwan wanted to expose this incident, but he didn't dare take the risk. In the end, he told himself to let it go. Speaking up probably wouldn't get the other guy punished, while he himself would end up looking petty. Thinking this way made him feel a bit more comfortable inside. We might have a guest coming to the house soon. Shuero, make some arrangements for it. At the dinner table, Mufu spoke up, leaving Pei Shuero slightly surprised. A guest was coming to the house? How come she had no idea about this? Mufu knitted his brow slightly, seemingly sensing a hint of puzzlement. It's the old madam of the fifth family from Jinsheng. What? The old madam of the fifth family? Pei Shuero was truly startled this time. They had never had any interactions or dealings with them before. Why was the old madam coming over as a guest? Mufu thought for a moment and replied, you can't really call it being a guest, either. The old madam is handling some business in Heir and doesn't want to stay in a hotel. Plus, the fifth family doesn't have a residence here. When eldest sister found out, she arranged for them to stay with us. How could eldest sister just do that? Without even asking us first, without needing to think. They knew what kind of scheme she was pulling. Although the fifth family wasn't top tier in the capital, and their name didn't rank near the very top, that didn't affect their status and influence. The fifth family was neither purely political nor purely commercial, relying instead on divination and fate-altering arts. Legend had it that their ancestors calculated a great national crisis and reversed the fate of the entire country, which was how the present empire came to be. However, because those ancestors leaked heavenly secrets, they met untimely deaths. Even though the fifth family secured their standing, and their prestige and power reached their peak. As the saying goes, every gain comes with a counterforce. How could changing a nation's destiny be balanced by mortal lies alone? From then on, the descendants of the fifth family withered away, leaving a massive household reduced to just 2 branches, and a total of only 3 descendants. 2 males and 1 female. The direct branch had only a single heir remaining. And to make matters worse, several years ago, something happened to that golden boy of the direct branch, and word had it that he became a vegetative state, potentially passing away at any moment. With descendants withering away, their abilities had also declined. The direct branch reportedly lost touch with their state of mastery. For a prestigious family to fall to such a state was truly enough to make people sigh with emotion. Still, no one dared to look down on the fifth family, as they were a clan under the protection of the higher-ups. The one lying down over there had grown up in the Prime Minister's residence, cherished by the supreme ruler as if he were his own child. In order to cure him, immense effort had been expended, with the promise that whoever cured him would receive whatever they desired. Even if the fifth family was declining, they were still a force to be reckoned with. What's more, a lean camel is still bigger than a horse. What kind of benefits was the eldest aunt trying to gain from this? What did it have to do with their family? The old lady was getting up there in years. What would happen if something went wrong? Who could possibly shoulder that responsibility? If she hosted them well, the eldest aunt would reap the benefits, while they in Heir wouldn't get a single perk. They wouldn't get any benefits in Heir anyway. It's simply a lot of work for 0 reward. The moment Mu Fu saw his wife's expression, he knew exactly what she was thinking. He didn't want to get mixed up in this mess either. His attitude of splitting off and leaving the capital made his stance clear, as he didn't harbor any grand ambitions. Working hard was just to give his wife and children a good life, ensuring they had food to eat, clothes to wear, money to spend, and happiness. If his wife wanted to be a rich lady and go get beauty treatments, or travel abroad and watch fashion shows, she could do whatever she liked. He would provide their son with the best educational environment. But as a father, he couldn't manage his children for their entire lives. If they lacked the capability in the future, they could just live ordinary lives. He wasn't going to break his back serving as an ox or a horse for them. As for his son Xiao Chun, he had to take care of him for the rest of his life. The kid had suffered way too much hardship in the first half of his life, so the latter half had to be used to compensate him. Still, he figured that latching onto the fifth family was a good thing, as it would build a solid relationship that might help secure a good marriage in the future. He couldn't say right in front of the kids, "Don't overthink it." And even if they agreed, the guests might not necessarily come. Though if they really could host them, it would be a good thing. Having more personal connections could never be wrong. Pei Shuero could only nod in agreement, since the people back in the capital had set their minds on it. Refusing would just make the eldest aunt bring the old madam out in person. while the other Mu children showed a lot of excitement. I was the only one who didn't even lift an eyelid, focusing intently on eating my dinner, as if I were facing a meal of peerless delicacies. Seeing this, Mu Fu felt deeply worried. Xiaochen was raised to be far too pure and innocent, and he couldn't tell if it was a blessing or a curse. If in the future he couldn't find someone genuine, married into a wealthy family only to be taken advantage of and eaten alive, yet was too accustomed to luxury to endure hardship if he married an ordinary person. He wanted his wife to teach him more later on, since society was complex and being too naive wasn't a good thing. Just as Mu Fu was lost in a flurry of wild thoughts, I had already swallowed the very last bite, bringing my dinner to a wonderfully satisfied close. Catching my old man's complicated gaze, I paused for a moment, wondering if I had eaten a bit too much and caused him to worry. I only ate until I was full. He wasn't worried I'd eat the family into bankruptcy, was he? Little did I know his mind was jumping ahead to my future marriage prospects. When I arrived at school and stepped into Class F, the noisy classroom instantly fell silent, as if a mute button had been hit. Everyone clamped their mouths shut and stared, though they were busy with their own things, and kept stealing sideways glances at me, their expressions exceptionally bizarre. I walked straight ahead without straying and sat down in my seat. Beside me, Lu Qiuping asked with a dark face, "Why aren't you saying anything?" He had been waiting for me to come and humiliate him. Yet after waiting left and right, there was zero reaction. When I pulled out my textbook and started studying, he finally couldn't help speaking up. "What the hell is this game you're playing? Give me a straight answer." I gave him a perplexed, sidelong glance. Lu Qiuping slammed a hand down, jumped to his feet, and glared at me with fury. "Are you playing me for a fool?" The atmosphere in the classroom turned somewhat frightening, with everyone clearing a wide berth around us. I blinked my eyes innocently. "Oh, didn't you lose when we fought yesterday? Now I'm your boss. How dare you talk to me like that?" My brow furrowed deeply, as I felt it necessary to establish some intimidation. I stood up from my seat and walked up to the podium, my gaze sweeping across the people in the classroom, cold and filled with suppressive weight. "From now on, I'm the boss of Class F. If any of you aren't convinced, feel free to challenge me. You have to listen to me from now on, got it?" Even though I had defeated Lu Qiuping, Class F wasn't about to submit just like that. I was a newly arrived transfer student, and a guy on top of that. On what grounds did I get to be the boss? Even if Lu Qiuping lost, there were still plenty of other people around. Did I really expect them to just listen to a male student? Don't think that just because you beat Sis Ping you're all that. Who knows if you just got lucky or played some dirty tricks. Don't get too arrogant just because you're the new kid. That's right, we only recognize Sis Ping. Lu Mei arched a brow slightly. You guys recognize Lu Qiuping, but Lu Qiuping recognizing me means something completely different. Is this Mukin guy out his mind? I didn't bother wasting any more breath on the others, letting my gaze land squarely on Lu Qiuping. Do you acknowledge the outcome of yesterday or not? If you refuse to acknowledge it, there's nothing I can do about you. After all, when someone has no shame, they are truly invincible. Of course there's nothing I can do. What kind of green tea bullshit rhetoric is this? He was so angry he laughed out loud, glaring straight at me with a fierce gaze, gritting his teeth as he squeezed out two words: "I yield." A gentleman takes his revenge 10 years later. He firmly believed yesterday was just a fluke, and that I must have used some dirty tricks to win. Before he even had time to see what I did, he had already found himself flat on the ground, considering he had been through plenty of actual combat. How could he possibly not even withstand a single move? It was simply impossible. I looked at him with utter disdain, thinking, did I want to be the boss? I didn't want to be it at all. Was being a boss any fun? To put it bluntly, it was basically being an unpaid babysitter. As someone who didn't even want to come back to this mortal realm, I still had to toil away. What else could I do for the sake of accumulating merit? Coming to Class F was an accident. Blood Moon Spot had already promised. But walking down the hallway, I noticed something was off. Two wisps of chi were hovering in the air. A tiny black chi and a tiny purple chi entangling with each other. The purple chi was growing weaker and would soon be overwhelmed by the black chi. Judging by the peculiar nature of the purple chi, It meant a person of noble status was accompanied by black, malevolent energy. The situation was looking bad. Immediately, I got interested. Helping a noble person eliminate malevolent energy was a golden opportunity for merit. Learning that the floor below was Class F meant the noble person must be in Class F. Of course, I couldn't just drop it and had to go observe, which was why I ended up in Class F. I just bet that Lu Qiuping was that lucky. Or rather, unlucky, noble person. Weren't you looking at me? The people from the fifth family were really coming to our house. At the dinner table, the matter was brought up once again, not as a discussion, but as an announcement that people from the fifth family were arriving. Mu Rulin and Mu Yakin felt that since elders were handling it, there was no need for them to worry too much, so they took it rather casually. Mu Xuan kept his eyelids lowered, his mind spinning at top speed. Only I turned a deaf ear to everything outside the window, single-mindedly focused on shoveling rice and dishes into my mouth. Pei Shuero's mood grew complicated. With such a naive personality, what would he do in the future? He didn't even care about such a major matter. He really had a heart big enough to spare. What do you think about this, Xiaoqin? Pei Shuero suddenly spoke up to ask, in the middle of savoring my food. I blinked in surprise to see everyone staring at me, waiting for my thoughts. I had no choice but to put down my chopsticks and swallow my food. Thinking it over, since they were coming, we should just host them properly and treat them like ordinary guests. Hearing this, Mu Xuan couldn't help pushing back. Those are people from the fifth family. How can you treat them like ordinary guests? There were plenty of places where they wanted to be treated like VIPs. Anyone with means could enjoy top service at a hotel. Yet they didn't go there, and instead chose to come to our house. Why? Did they really not want to be treated like precious treasures? Not everyone wanted to be pampered. Mu Fu furrowed his brows in deep thought, though his expression soon smoothed out into a smile. Xiaoqin makes a lot of sense. The fifth family aren't ordinary people from Heir. Since they're coming to our house, being courteous and thoughtful should be enough. Being overly grandiose would only make us look sycophantic. Pei Shuero also figured it out. Xiaoqin was completely right. The old madam kept a low profile and rarely showed her face to people from Jincheng. She was someone who disliked drawing attention to herself. Treating her as an ordinary guest would suffice. Otherwise, what nice places couldn't she find? Mu Fu paused for a moment before saying, "Then let's do it that way." Actually, he still found it a bit strange. Why would a family with no prior acquaintance come to visit as guests? And why choose the Mu family of all places? When he asked the eldest sister in Jincheng, he got an earful, being told that such a great opportunity had fallen into someone else's lap. So he definitely needed to seize it and make good use of it. Yet here he wanted to push it away. What was the point of digging into the root of everything? What kind of plot could the fifth family possibly have against them? Even if they wanted to hand the house over for free, people wouldn't take it. He had hung up the phone on the spot back then. The fifth family couldn't possibly be plotting against the Mu family. What comes, take it as it is. As long as they didn't offend the people of the fifth family, everything would be fine. So as long as they didn't offend the people of the fifth family, it would be fine, since they had no interest in benefits. The eldest aunt could scheme all she wanted. Once the matter of hosting the old madam was settled, Mu Xuan watched in disbelief as they actually agreed, completely at a loss for words. If this wasn't pure nonsense, what was it? They were just letting a joke play out. They were practically treating their future and livelihood as a joke. He wanted to say something, but swallowed words back, whatever. He'd just wait until people from the fifth family moved into the house and figure something out then. He made up his mind to look out for himself. As for the guests coming to the house, I didn't give it a second thought. The old madam had nothing to do with me, and I wasn't going to be the one entertaining her. I'd rather spend my time figuring out how to bring Lu Qiuping to heel. In the blink of an eye, over half a month of school had passed, and I had adapted exceptionally well. I felt that contemporary kids had it way too good. Even guys were allowed to attend school. As long as one's learning capacity allowed it, they could keep studying. This was a wonderful thing. Something I certainly never experienced in the past. Seeing me arbitrarily crown myself as the boss, yet acting serious, well-behaved, and causing no trouble during class, while diligently reviewing and doing homework after class. The students of Class F realized I was clearly a model student. Are we in Class F just supposed to take this lying down? Are we really just going to let him turn us into straight A nerds? Jining Sai cried out in a breakdown. Myukin was getting more and more out of hand. It was one thing for him to act like a model student himself, but he was forcing the rest of them to do the same, banning noise and messing around during lectures, forbidding skipping classes and demanding all homework get done, even went as far as giving pop quizzes. If you couldn't answer, you had to take a penalty, until you finally understood the material. Was he a student or their homeroom teacher? Even old Liu wasn't as strict as him. Was this guy out of his mind? Thinking of this, Liu Qiuping's mouth twitched. At first, he had provoked and fought him, only to end up suppressing Class F's resistance. He thought it was going to be a fierce battle that shook the heavens. So how on earth did it turn into this legendary outcome? Liu Qiuping was feeling incredibly irritated as well. Since he couldn't beat the guy, what else could he do? Unwilling to accept that he couldn't win against such bizarre odds, the young man wanted to restore his prestige. Yet he was terrified of losing and embarrassing himself. He needed to ensure absolute foolproof success first. Sensing that Myukin was no simple character, he decided to put this matter on hold for now. I need to make a trip back to the capital. We'll talk about this after I get back. Liu Qiuping, you aren't agitated? As he spoke, a palpable sense of volatility radiated off him. Jiningsai let out a silent gasp, not daring to speak another word. Anyone familiar with Sis Ping knew that she harbored extreme aversion toward the capital. Every single time she returned to the capital, her mood turned sour. The oppressive and violent atmosphere left them too terrified to even raise their brows. Lai Qingqiu patted Sis Ping on the shoulder. If something's up, just say it. Don't carry it all alone. Jining Tsai quickly chimed in. Sis Ping, we're sisters. Liu Qiuping let out a dry, self-deprecating laugh, shooting them a sideways glare. The two of us are just heading back to the capital. It's not like we're walking into a sea of fire. What are you so scared of? The two of them exchanged glances and remained silent. Of course, they were scared of returning to the capital because of what happened the year before last. They hadn't taken it seriously at the time, only to come back having lost half their lives, covered from head to toe in injuries. Underneath their clothing, not a single patch of skin was intact. Everything was red, swollen, and bruised purple, making it feel as though their blood vessels could burst at any second. Even the slightest touch sent tremors through their bodies, and it took over a month of recuperation just to heal. Once they recovered, they went right back to their familiar selves, as if nothing had ever happened. When they tentatively asked about it, they were met with a strange, icy indifference, their eyes so bone-chillingly piercing that they never dared to ask questions again. It had left a deep psychological trauma. Realizing they were just worried about her, Liu Qiuping chuckled, warmth flashing in the depths of his eyes. All right, stop acting like a couple of sissies. I know how to protect myself. I'm not a kid anymore. I know how to fight back. By the third day, when I noticed Liu Qiuping was absent, I assumed he hadn't come to school, only to realize he was outright skipping. I crooked a finger to summon Jining Tsai over, the gesture looking remarkably like calling a puppy, though she desperately wanted to ignore it and pretend she hadn't seen anything. She suddenly felt her entire body turn ice cold, swallowed by a wave of biting chill that made her shiver violently. She snapped her head around reflexively, only to see me staring right at her with a smile, my eyes carrying a hint of chilliness. She couldn't help shuddering, thinking it was a good thing she held back. Otherwise, she'd have no clue what the consequences would be. It definitely wouldn't be anything she wanted to see. What are you looking at? You got a problem? She barked in a harsh voice. Where's Liu Qiuping? She wanted to snap back, but facing that dark expression, she didn't dare. Sis Ping took a leave of absence and isn't coming in. I lower my chin in thought. Took a leave of absence? That doesn't sound too good. Bad fortune, ominous disasters, and a license for trouble. Her vital spirit and soul were unstable, and the malevolent energy was starting to suppress her purple chi. That wasn't a good sign. Where did she go on her leave of absence? And what was she up to? Hearing that interrogation, she snapped. What is this, a police interrogation? Even if you self-proclaimed yourself as the boss of Class F, you don't have the right to treat us like criminals. I looked at Jining Tsai with a bewildered expression. I was utterly speechless. By the third day, I had taken a leave of absence myself. The Mu family had decided to treat the guests normally, so at least some superficial courtesy had to be put on. With a grand wave of his hand, Mu Fu mobilized the entire family, taking a leave of absence to stay home and welcome the distinguished guests. I had no objections. If they wanted me to take leave, I took leave. Little did I know that Class F was turning upside down. After mocking me yesterday, and immediately brushing my words aside like wind past their ears once the class ended, they had gone to classes, finished school, and headed home to sleep early just like any other day, feeling pretty good about themselves. Then, an unexpected event occurred. When I woke up and tried to call out for someone to find something, I discovered no sound came out. Thinking I just hadn't woken up yet, I cleared my throat and shouted, only for my expression to change when there was still no sound. Feeling like I was dreaming, I touched my throat, opened my mouth in a silent scream, and rushed outside. The Pooh household was thrown into utter chaos. Instead of associating it with yesterday, they assumed it was some kind of illness. So they went to the hospital for a checkup, but everything came back normal. My vocal cords and organs were completely fine, yet I couldn't speak a word, and my mouth produced no sound when opened. The doctor attributed it to psychological issues, noting that since my recent life had been smooth without any incidents, they suggested going home to recuperate and adjust my mindset, predicting it would probably get better in a few hours. Upon hearing the doctor's words, Class F erupted. Several people from the Pooh household had run into trouble. Someone lowered their voice mysteriously, as Jining Tsai overheard them asking what had happened. Her classmates sat nearby. Gossip spreading. My family lives close to the Pooh household. A neighbor walking their dog heard that young Master Pooh turned mute early this morning. The people around doubted it. No way, that's gotta be fake. How do you just randomly turn mute when you were totally fine? His voice messages last night were completely normal. It's real. My neighbor's old acquaintance chatted with them and said they went to the hospital but couldn't find any physical problems. It was caused by psychological reasons. Plus, several of the people he usually hangs out with are taking leave today, just like him. A mirror-like silence fell over everyone around them, unsure whether to believe it or not. It was utterly baffling, and nobody connected it to yesterday's events. Nobody except Jining Tsai, Lai Qingxiu, and Gung Dan, who immediately thought of what I had said yesterday. I sentence you to 3 days of being unable to speak. Jining Tsai broke out in goosebumps all over her body, feeling a chilling draft sweep over her. This is way too creepy. Qingxiu, could this have something to do with Mukin? How could anyone keep themselves from suspecting it? What was said yesterday matched the disaster that happened today down to the letter. Wasn't this just a bit too much of a coincidence? Lai Qingxiu furrowed his brow tightly. Lai Qingxiu took a deep breath. Regardless of whether it's a coincidence or not, let's just make sure we never provoke him again. This guy is truly unfathomable. If it really turns out to be his doing, our fates will probably be even more miserable. Yininkai nodded frantically. That was exactly what she was thinking too. From that day on, the atmosphere in the classroom completely changed. Nobody dared to make loud noises or mess around anymore. All of them obediently listening to my words and reading their books. I looked at all of this with satisfaction, as long as they stopped causing trouble. I couldn't be bothered to use any tricks to deal with them. The days that followed were quite peaceful, while public opinion online grew increasingly intense. When Yimo's parents presented hard evidence and handed it directly to the police for handling, with the police stepping in to investigate and gather evidence. The truth behind the department store incident from back then was finally brought to light. Jiang Yin and several other students involved were all handed major disciplinary demerits by the school in order to be expelled. She snapped her head around reflexively, only to see me staring right at her with a smile, my eyes carrying a hint of chilliness. She couldn't help shuddering, thinking it was a good thing she held back. Otherwise, she'd have no clue what the consequences would be. It definitely wouldn't be anything she wanted to see. What are you looking at? You got a problem? She barked in a harsh voice. Where's Lu Qiuping? She wanted to snap back, but facing that dark expression, she didn't dare. Sis Ping took a leave of absence and isn't coming in. I lowered my chin in thought. Took a leave of absence? That doesn't sound too good. Bad fortune, ominous disasters, and a license for trouble. Her vital spirit and soul were unstable, and the malevolent energy was starting to suppress her purple chi. That wasn't a good sign. Where did she go on her leave of absence? And what was she up to? Hearing that interrogation, she snapped. What is this, a police interrogation? Even if you self-proclaimed yourself as the boss of Class F, you don't have the right to treat us like criminals. I looked at Jining Tsai with a bewildered expression. I was utterly speechless. By the third day, I had taken a leave of absence myself. The Mu family had decided to treat the guests normally. so at least some superficial courtesy had to be put on. With a grand wave of his hand, Mu Fu mobilized the entire family, taking a leave of absence to stay home and welcome the distinguished guests. I had no objections. If they wanted me to take leave, I took leave. Little did I know that Class F was turning upside down. After mocking me yesterday, and immediately brushing my words aside like wind past their ears once the class ended, they had gone to classes, finished school, and headed home to sleep early just like any other day, feeling pretty good about themselves. Then, an unexpected event occurred. When I woke up and tried to call out for someone to find something, I discovered no sound came out. Thinking I just hadn't woken up yet, I cleared my throat and shouted, only for my expression to change when there was still no sound. Feeling like I was dreaming, I touched my throat, opened my mouth in a silent scream, and rushed outside. The Pooh household was thrown into utter chaos. Instead of associating it with yesterday, they assumed it was some kind of illness. So they went to the hospital for a checkup, but everything came back normal. My vocal cords and organs were completely fine, yet I couldn't speak a word, and my mouth produced no sound when opened. The doctor attributed it to psychological issues, noting that since my recent life had been smooth without any incidents, they suggested going home to recuperate and adjust my mindset, predicting it would probably get better in a few hours. Upon hearing the doctor's words, Class F erupted. Several people from the Pooh household had run into trouble. Someone lowered their voice mysteriously, as Jeannie Tsai overheard them asking what had happened. Her classmates sat nearby. Gossip spreading. My family lives close to the Pooh household. A neighbor walking their dog heard that young Master Pooh turned mute early this morning. The people around doubted it. No way, that's gotta be fake. How do you just randomly turn mute when you were totally fine? His voice messages last night were completely normal. It's real.